paper, it's easy. Win and advance.
Bill's gonna drive to victory!
But the truth, it's harder than the road they drive
They
on.
spin across the line! Wow!
12 drivers remain, hoping to match dreams with destiny and claim a cup filled with history.
Are you ready? Let's go!
The NASCAR playoffs continue at Kansas on USA.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo!
My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
Tonight on Countdown to Green, we look back at who survived and advanced Week 1 of the Queen City Crown. The crew previews the semifinals and finals of Week 2. And we have wheels to give away with Logitech G. All of that and more coming up on Countdown to Green.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Countdown to Green, presented by Logitech for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series at Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. Tonight, it's Week 2 of the Queen City Crown, the first tournament for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. I'm James Pike alongside Taylor Burris and Blake McCandless, and tonight we are going to find out not only who wins this, Taylor, but we're going to find out who comes away with points and who comes away with scholarship money.
Absolutely. The good thing is everyone here tonight is going to get points, but the top 6 are going to go away with that scholarship money that's up for grabs for those top 6 drivers. And it's all a little bit about a couple of things. Who was able to study well, do their homework, and then come back to hopefully pass this exam that we're about to see here tonight. And also maybe some rivalry matchups that we're going to be excited to keep an eye on here tonight. I looked at the colleges, make sure who was going up against who. And we got a couple of matchups that are going to be exciting to watch going into this week.
We do have a few good matchups, but Blake, I think tonight marks a shift in mentality. If last week was all about surviving and just getting it to this point, tonight is about bringing your A effort, your A game to find a way into those top 6 positions and come away with money and points.
No doubt about it, and especially when it comes to qualifying here tonight. I've talked to many drivers that are going to be a part of this field tonight, and that is the one thing they've been preaching to me since last week when they were able to get through this semifinal, is how important being able to nail a crucial lap to set yourself up for tonight, because, again, regardless of the heat or the feature that you get to at the end of the night, it's going to be a sprint, so you're going to have to qualify well, and there's a lot of pressure with all this money on the line to go out and execute at one time. It should be fun to watch.
And Blake, you make a really good point that this is a night where your finishing position last week does not matter. In the meantime, though, if you are so inclined and so curious, if you're a driver who's registered for at least one time attack and attempted it, you will be automatically entered for a chance to win a prize pack, including a Logitech G923 True Force racing wheel and pedal set for the Xbox or PC and iRacing credit. For more information and full rules, you can head to pcl.dg /pages /eNASCAR for more information. So neat opportunity to pick up a really, really good wheel that has seen the rise of many great drivers on the surface. A lot of them got started on the G29, G923 platform. Here's a look at the calendar and where we sit in things, Taylor Burris. 1 week down, 1 week to go here in this Queen City Crown.
Absolutely, as we kick off this amazing and unique schedule for the 2025-2026 season for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. Once we wrap up here tonight, we're going to take a little bit of a month break off, get some things ready as we head back a little further south to one of my favorite tracks, Daytona International Speedway, for the Clash on the Beach, before we head out to the Midwest for some action up in Iowa and at Michigan, before we return back to the East Coast for some short track action at Martinsville Speedway and the Homestead Miami Speedway to wrap up the season later on in 2026 during the spring semester. So a lot of exciting different tracks that we're going to be facing off here with 1.5-mile short tracks and super speedways. A great way to test the durability as well as the learning that they have when it comes to racing here.
Neat mix of tracks that we have in the fall. Super Speedway will follow us here in Charlotte and Daytona, and then the short track, almost a mile length at Iowa, but a place that's tricky to get around. And even though you have a lot of options so far as lanes and lines, Blake, that to me is maybe the best example we've got on the calendar of a track that's easy to learn, difficult to master.
Yeah, again, we got a lot of different types of racetracks. Iowa is going to be challenging. Daytona, I think it's just going to be a total unknown when we finally get there in a couple of weeks. And this is part of what makes it an unknown, James, is this unique knockout-style tournament. Now, we've gone through the preliminary round, so if you're just joining us, don't have to worry about that. We got through the time attack. We got through week 1 just a week ago. So all these groups, all these drivers, we've dropped a significant amount of them to just narrow it down to 39 that have advanced to tonight's semifinals to try and take the Queen City crown and all the scholarship money that's on the line. But looking forward to tonight. Right-hand side of your screen, drivers still have a couple more rounds that they have to go through within this semifinal. All drivers in this week score points. That's going to be crucial when we talk about the season and trying to crown a champion when all is said and done. But only 25 will have the right to be all the way to that right side of the bracket, James. 25 drivers who have one shot, and as you mentioned, those positions that are up, 6 of which will pay out scholarship money tonight. All of that comes through 25 drivers tonight, but as far as how tonight is concerned, just look at the orange side of the bracket, the right side of the bracket. Semifinals, we got 3 rounds, and then 1 final round to settle it.
That was exactly the point I was going to make. Week 1 is yellow, red, and blue. Week 2 is orange. So 3 semifinals from which the top 5 advance. Everybody else goes to the LCQ from which the top 10 advance from that. And Taylor, that leaves us with 25 drivers that will compete in the final for those 6 positions that pay out scholarship money and the right to hold the Queen City crown.
Absolutely. It's incredible how thousands of colleges and drivers tried to make that top 120 in the time attacks, and now we're about to whittle it down to 25 drivers, which in a sense will whittle down to 6 who get the money here as we take a look at some of this bracket as well as the final information to give you a better idea of what's in store for us here tonight.
So again, those 3 semifinals, that orange part of the bracket, that's what we're going to start with. Drivers are already in the session. They're going to qualify and then get snaked into separate heats. So worth noting, we brought this up earlier, but your finishing position last week does not matter. Where you start in the heats is based upon the qualifying time that you set in this singular session, not on where you started last week. So that's an important point to remember. It was just about getting here, and then you essentially get a clean slate coming into week 2. Then you run the semifinal races, top 5 go. LCQ brings you your top 10. You mix it together, you get 25 for the final round. Before we start really looking into week 2 table burst, let's take a look back at what happened in week 1 of the Queen City Crown.
Absolutely. 120 drivers decided to take to the high banks here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. A lot of great heads-up driving side by side with these 20-lap heat races that we had to steal. Well, a lot of aggressiveness as we see right here between several drivers such as the Ball State and Wilson College collecting a major pile up here in the opening heats of this event. We saw more contact here. A lot of aggressive racing from start to finish here. But as we progress further, some drivers were able to just barely sneak their way through and just nail their way into the next round. Also, another thing to talk about, the University of Northwestern Ohio was having some issues as well as UNC Charlotte, 2 teams that we're talking about that struggled to get through some of the chaos. And then tempers were flaring, even some that were not college rivalries. We saw the drivers just really wanting to push themselves to the absolute limit. But for one driver, he decided to return to victory lane. It was Connor Yarashak with Calgary who was able to come out on top with last week's opening race here. Exciting action, but it doesn't really matter. It only guarantees him to be able to be here tonight along with 39 other drivers.
Tonight really is the epitome of what have you done for me lately, I think, because as good as Connor Yarashak looked 1 week ago, and I think certainly one of the favorites to at least finish in the top 6 tonight, Blake, he's going to have to go prove himself all over again at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So why not we take a look at tonight's Logitech G track analysis?
Well, if you were with us last week, it's a pretty familiar sight for many of these drivers as well. But we are once again here at Charlotte Motor Speedway to try and settle the Queen City Clash, or to take the Queen City crown, rather. 1.5 miles, standard mile and a half in Concord, North Carolina. Interesting note, too, so many drivers, and we'll talk about it later in this pre-race show, about what a home track or a home race this is for many drivers, some of which will be participating, some will not. But, of course, Connor Yarashak looking to go back-to-back after taking the win in those preliminary rounds last week, trying to do so. He was the previous winner of this race last year in this series as well.
Yes, Yarashak won under the old format last season, so there is a bit of precedent set there, Taylor Burris, but there is also a lot that we are going to have to watch, not only amongst Yarashak, but some of the other names that looked really, really strong in week 1 of this tournament.
Absolutely. You have, of course, defending series champion Logan Clampett, who put on a great run in his heat race, as well as also you saw Matthew Morton being a strong competitor, Zwack as well. I mean, there's a lot of big major competitors that we're going to be talking about all throughout the week.
A lot of competitors that we're going to talk about. Before we talk about them, let's look at some of the storylines entering week 2 of the Queen City Crown. And here's a big one. UNOH and UNCC didn't necessarily have the best of week 1s.
No, they had a ton of drivers in the field. 14 combined trucks were participating. We knew that with these two colleges, a lot of pride in their engineering and motorsports programs. They wanted to start the 2025 season on the right note, but out of 14, James, this is what is so tricky about this format. 3 drivers are still living to try and fight for some scholarship money tonight. So a disappointing, I would say, opening week for each of these schools that, like we have said, have a ton of folks that are looking to make it into the NASCAR ranks one day, whether it's in the driver's seat or in the garage on the engineering side of things as well. They still have the opportunity to rep their schools tonight, but I would say a disappointing effort, Taylor, for many of these drivers who I'm sure were hoping for much better in this first round of the season.
I have to agree with you on that. Like, a lot of things were a major issue for those two colleges. But one thing that did showcase was the experience of drivers that came out here tonight. Former winners, former eNASCAR and current eNASCAR drivers were the face of the competition. Like we touched on, Logan Clampett and Connor Yarashak being some of the dominant factors here this past week, as well as also Matthew Morton and Matthew Zwack, other competitors that we've seen on the basis of working their way up through the field. And I gotta say, for Mario Miranda, who was a driver who had to fight and claw his way, he let that experience showcase to come out on top with a chance to be here tonight after falling all the way back and starting dead last in his heats.
Well, yet that experience, it pays dividends, but yet it means nothing tonight because it's a total reset. But this is exactly why there's so much pressure going into week 2 versus what we had in week 1. All of the points that are being paid out, again, we mentioned it earlier that every driver participating here in week 2 will garner championship points. And again, with the fact that you're not guaranteed to continue advancing, gathering those points, so very important. But again, top 6, earn the payouts. That's what these drivers are really here for. Yes, they want to earn points. Yes, they want to win a championship, but it's all about the big bucks that they are after tonight. Winner takes on $3K, $7K on the line in total. That's what all these drivers are looking for tonight.
Absolutely. And so the question is, did you go back and did you study for this big exam that you're about to face here today? We know that these drivers here, especially some of our major frontrunners that we'll be watching tonight, they made sure to go back, think about what they can do, because it's not really about who has the best setup. It's all about who can conserve their tires, who can avoid the chaos, and who can be able to maintain track position throughout the action here tonight. That's going to be exciting to see as we take a look at some of the practice going on right now as we get set to go racing.
Some big names near the top of that list. John Hagan, Zach Sprouse, Adam Garza, Daniel Nanny amongst the top 4 drivers. You get a good look at Connor Yarashak, currently 16th on the board. But again, these drivers are going to qualify here momentarily, and it's where they qualify in that 5-minute qualifying session, Blake, that is going to determine where they start in those heats.
Well, you know what's going to set us up? I mean, just if you took a look at that pylon for a second, just look at the time that's separating the drivers at the top of the board versus the bottom of the board. I mean, it looks like the late model racing that you and I cover on a weekly basis, James, 1st through 20th, barely separated by, what, a 10th and a half or so. So it's going to be close. It's going to be competitive. We've whittled it down to the best drivers. This is what we're to expect, and it's going to be quite a show tonight to see who takes home all this scholarship money.
Taylor Burris, what are you looking forward to the most in week 2 of the Queen City Crown?
My thing that I'm looking forward to watching here is those who may have struggled a little bit last week, but were just able to barely make their way into that top 39. I want to see how hard they studied, how hard they made preparation to see if they could be that future superstar and rise to the top of the occasion and be top honors in their class here this week. And I got to say, for those who did study hard and are working, are they going to be a little bit more lax? It's going to be exciting to see how this all plays out tonight.
We had varying paths into the second round. 2 drivers swept the first and second round races. Blake Lynn had to come through the LCQ and finish last in the transfer spots in round 2. So different paths, but they all converge tonight on the Queen City Crown. That's our Countdown to Green show presented by Logitech for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. We'll be back on the other side of the break with week 2 of the Queen City Crown from Charlotte Motor Speedway.
On paper, it's easy. Win and advance.
Bell's gonna drive to victory.
But the truth, it's harder than the road they drive
And
on.
spin across the line. Wow!
12 drivers remain. Open to match dreams with destiny and claim a cup filled with history.
Are you ready? Let's go!
The NASCAR playoffs continue at Kansas on USA.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo! My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to iRacing coverage of the second week of the first tournament for the 2025-26 eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Play vs. College League, the Queen City Crown, live from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. I am James Pike alongside Taylor Burris and Blake. Tonight, we find out who is going to walk away with scholarship money and who is going to walk away with points. And most importantly, Taylor Burris, who had the honor of being the first ever tournament winner in College Series history.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing how this all plays out here tonight. We dwindled it down from 1,000, now 120, then 39. Now we're going to get to see who that top 25 is, who will have the shot to go for the money here tonight. I'm excited about it. A lot of great universities represented all throughout the United States and even Canada represented here today. It's going to be exciting. We're happy to have all of you with us here, and hopefully for some of you out there are representing your school colors for tonight's action.
Here's a look at the schedule. Blake McCandless, 1 week down to the Queen City Crown. Tonight, we find out who is our champion of the first tournament.
It's been a week of build-up for all of these drivers to find out who's finally going to be able to end up in victory lane with all that scholarship money that we were talking about, a countdown to green presented by Logitech, but also looking forward to the next couple of races and how differently things are going to play out here. How about Daytona? How about Iowa, Michigan? Multi-groove racing, super speedway racing. Going to be a lot of different things that we're going to be able to look forward to here to wrap up this 2025 fall semester for the College Series.
Charlotte, Daytona, Iowa, all before Christmas. This is our explainer for the new format of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, Taylor Burris, and we have jumped through the preliminary round and through week one. We're looking at week two this evening.
Absolutely. So if we take a look at week two, the 39 drivers that have moved on in advance, they're going to go through a little bit of a semifinal, heat race, LCQ, and then out of that, we're going to select the top 25 to make it into the final round where they will battle it out for the chance of winning some scholarship funds here tonight. Only the top 6, though, get the scholarship money.
The top 39 are re-qualifying right now, so finishing position from week one does not matter. Those qualifying times that they are setting at this very moment will determine the starting order of the heats for our 3 semifinals, from which the top 5 drivers will advance. Everybody else goes to a last chance qualifier, from which the top 10 will advance. And that will leave us with 25 drivers, Blake, to complete in the final for the scholarship money and for the right to be the holder of the Queen City Crown.
And again, I think we're just going to see so much better racing than what we had last week. We saw a lot of great battles at the cut line throughout the week, but a lot of these drivers that are up front, the 39 that were able to advance to this week, not to say they've had it easy, but they weren't having to push quite as hard with the fact that they were just trying to survive. They were just trying to advance. Well, there's no more waiting. There's no more hiding anymore. It's a short sprint. And again, I can't imagine with the fact that one of these drivers has a chance to take home $3,000 tonight. And a lot of that comes down to where you start, where you qualify. There's so much pressure on this lap. We were just looking at practice. I can't imagine what's going through these drivers' mind with that much money on the line to try to help them with their scholarship money. And it comes down to just being able to take a truck around Charlotte Motor Speedway as quickly as they can. Sounds simple, but it's so difficult with how talented these drivers are in this final round.
Taylor, I know you and I talked with some of these drivers in the lead up to this week, and I had one driver in particular come to me and say, honestly, last week I raced at about 80% because I knew that the more important thing to do was just make it to this week. But now, Taylor, I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that kind of mentality. I think you're going to have to go just about at 100% for the most of this, because these are the best of the best in the college series. Whittled out everything out. Now it's time to show what you really have.
I got to say, when it comes to the heat races and the LCQ, for sure, it is going to be all-out racing to try to be one of those top 25 drivers to make it. But once we get into that feature race later on this evening, we're going to see a little bit of mix of both. We're going to see that over-aggressiveness, but we're also going to see a little bit of that conservativeness as well, because it's a little bit longer. Tires we saw from last week start to really fade off quite quickly in the run. So that's one thing we're going to have to keep an eye on when we get set for the finals later on tonight.
When and how much do you want to push? That is a very, very big question that these drivers are going to have to answer. This is where we are in the bracket. You saw everything from week one in yellow, red, and blue last week. We moved to week two. Everything is orange, and we are about to jump into our first of 3 semifinals. This is the grid. Timothy Holmes set the fast time in this qualifying session, and he will start top of the board in Heat 1 with the 29.475. So the Horry Georgetown Technical College driver out of South Carolina, joined on the outside by the defending winner, Connie Arashak from the University of Calgary, the Dinos. St. John's River State College's A.J. Hyder looks strong in Week 1. He'll start to the inside of Motlow State's Ryan Arnold. Daniel Falkingham is a veteran of the college series, representing the University of Maine at Machias. To his outside on Road 3, it's Des Moines Area Community College's Ryan Andrew, who rolls off from 6th.
Moving on into row number 4 from Purdue University in Indianapolis, it's going to be Jacob Bradley, followed by Oklahoma State University's Jackson Anderson. James Bowman from the University of Kentucky will be in row number 5, and rounding out your top 10 from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Alexander Russell. Row 6 will see Clemson University's Jake Hall and University of Houston's Abraham Vila.
And just another driver to complete this row number 7, so starting 13th tonight, Andy Trupiano from the University of Detroit Mercy.
Trupiano had a bit of a fun run into this. Trupiano was the 119th seed in qualifying in the time attacks to make his way into this Queen City Crown. And once he got here again, sort of, I think, reinforcing the point that even if you might not necessarily qualify all that well, Taylor, you can race your way in, you can take advantage of other people's mistakes. That's what he did, and he drove himself from the back to the front and finds himself here in Week 2 of competition.
I mean, that's probably one of the best strategy calls you could pull out, being that far in the seeding, but being able to take care of your equipment, avoid the chaos that we saw in week 1, and now has the shot to do it all over again here. And this will be pretty much exciting. Could we see one of what we consider an upset, if you think about it? A 119th seed going to become possibly the number 1 seed at the end of tonight's race.
Upset to a point, but it's the kind of thing where sometimes you just miss your qualifying lap and you can be a little bit faster than what your qualifying lap would indicate. As we take a look at tonight's Logitech G race analysis, plate the canvas, the setup for these semifinals, similar to what we saw with the opening round heats a week ago.
Yep, you set your qualifying lap to set this lineup. First through fifth, though, will automatically advance to the final round, to that final feature race where all that prestige, all those points, and all that money is on the line. 6th through 13th, they're not totally out of it yet, but they're going to have to qualify back into that feature race through a semifinal LCQ, a place that they do not want to be with all that pressure that is on them. So 1st through 5th, top 5, we're sending them on to the final. That's the goal for this 20-lapper.
The other really important piece, I think, to keep in mind here, track position, because if you have to go to the LCQ, you're not starting any higher in the final than 16th. So if you want good track position, you need to make sure that you lock yourself in early on into the final. We're set to go racing here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for week 2 of the Queen City Crown as Timmy Holmes will lead the field. The green pace car pulls off down on pit road. Green flag comes out, and we are racing with semifinal number 1 of the Queen City Crown. And immediately, Timmy Holmes got a shot there from A.J. Hyder as they came across the line. Connor Yarashak with a good start, though, on the outside. Hyder clear all by himself in the 3rd position as they come up to speed and up to the banking of turns 1 and 2.
We talked about in the pre-race show the importance of having that experience here, and we have 4 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competitors competing in here tonight, and we're going to see that come into fruition as we see action side by side among some of our competitors. Bradley, trouble for one driver as he will loop it around. That's Bowman who will come into the grass, but we still keep it clean and green.
Bowman ends up down on the inside there, but there were other drivers who took a much, much bigger hit. Jacob Bradley was the one that initially went around. Alexander Russell, Abraham Vela also caught up in the mess. And what kind of a gift this may be for anybody that was a little bit further back, because if you're Ryan Andrew, Jake Hall, you've got a chance here. Timothy Holmes did not have a good first lap, really struggled with those tires getting up to temp. He was loose on the exit of turn 4. Same problem, I think, that fell Bradley and Russell, and he has already slid right back to the edge of the transfer spots.
What did we see all throughout last week was the fact that cold tires were really difficult. We saw so many drivers who were loose and were sliding around in turns 3 and 4. And what do you know? First lap of the semifinals, it's exactly what happens again. We talked about in the pre-race show, going back and studying, making sure that this doesn't happen to you. And you can see it's so easy that Bowman for Kentucky Esports just sliding around, trying to chase it up the racetrack, catching a few drivers who I'm sure we talked to Alexander Russell last week about how he needed to get better qualifying. That's how he ends up in that wreck. Didn't get a good qualifying lap. They get loose in front of him, nowhere to go, and now he may have to fight through a spot in the LCQ. But another thing these drivers were very adamant in talking about is how much this track and the track last week changed. How about the fact that this is very early in sim time? The fact that you can see that the sun is rising right now, that there's a lot of shade on the back straightaway at Charlotte Motor Speedway. That indicates it's early in the day, so very, very cold track temp, cold tires. Going to be perhaps an even bigger storyline tonight than it was a week ago.
If you need the specific numbers, we are right at 10:30 a.m. local time in sim. Air temp is 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So on the cooler side of things, as we watch this great battle between Jackson Anderson and Timothy Holmes and Ryan Arnold for the transfer spot. 5th will make it. That's what Holmes has now. Arnold trying to chase him down and take it away and force our pole sitter into the LCQ.
Riding on board with Ryan Arnold from Muffalo State Community College in Tennessee. He is definitely trying everything he can. He's being patient, though, trying to see which of those two lanes is going to benefit him. As you see, Holmes starting to slip back a little bit, starting to lose a little bit of grip there on that outside lane as he scrapes the wall off turn number 4. But for the driver of Jackson Anderson right there, really good line. He's holding that inside lane, hugging that white line in the corners to try and keep that car pointed in the right direction off corner exit.
Going to be interesting to see what the tire wear is like as we see a few drivers make contact with the wall there. But I'm going to watch Holmes' tire wear very closely because he and Daniel Falkenkamp, for that matter, both have been very willing to walk up the racetrack and run that outside line. We saw Holmes sort of duck down to the bottom, but it's sort of a trade-off, I think, if you go up there, Blake, because you wear the tires out a little bit more just for the longer distance that you're running, but you're less susceptible to losing the rear end out from underneath you.
It's a good point to make, especially through 1 and 2. Again, the fact that iRacing over the last the last week or so, with the realistic weather it's had, and I think you could see it kind of come to fruition here in this race, is that the top of 1 and 2 is going to be really competitive. 3 and 4 is going to be a little bit trickier, where 1, the exit narrows up, but 2, the wind hasn't been helping these trucks try to navigate through turn 4. It kind of pushes you up to the wall. So I think we're going to see drivers kind of testing out this end of the racetrack just a little bit more as Hyder continues to lead Euroshack, which again, not too bad for the St. John's Rivers driver. That anytime you're in front of the previous winner of a race, I'd say that's a pretty good omen as we come around and complete the halfway point, or reach the halfway point this time.
Well, let's not forget that A.J. Hyder had a really strong week 1. He was first in his first round race, and in his second round race, he finished second. So it's not like Hyder didn't have some pretty sporty speed coming out of week 1. It's just now he managed to get the track position, and especially after Timothy Holmes got loose towards the end of lap 1, that sort of opened up the bottom. He was able to sort of push forward as everybody else checked up. It's part of the reason why Hyder has the lead as you look at this battle, which really is starting to settle up into 3 trucks here between Anderson, Arnold, and Andrew. This is the battle for the last automatic transfer into the final.
Absolutely, as we get on board here with Des Moines area of Ryan Andrews, and I gotta say, he's keeping it cool right now, not showing any fear whatsoever as he's trying to send it down to the inside of Arnold to get the 6th spot away to make him a little bit closer for a shot of transferring into the feature race here tonight, but has to back off a little bit as Anderson goes up the track a little bit right there, still maintains track position for the time being as he is holding that coveted 5th position here in this heat race tonight as they head back over to turn 1.
Hyder and Yerashak have opened up a gap on Falkenkamp. It's got 4/10. It's just enough to be noticeable within the draft. And so here comes Yerashak looking to the inside of Hyder for the race lead. A little bit further back, you've got a good battle for 7th, or rather 6th, between Andrew and Arnold, the Ryans door-to-door at this point. But it will mean nothing if they let Jackson Anderson get away, because Anderson has the transfer spot that they both want.
And again, just not a whole lot of time to try to set something up. So you could see everybody, the fact that you were talking about earlier, James, that you maybe use your tires up a little bit more at the top end of 1 and 2, but it feels like that is the faster end of the racetrack right now as we continue to see more trucks starting to navigate and migrate up there to that top side as, again, side by side for the race lead. Again, they're fighting for what will be starting spots a little bit later on. So they want these spots really, really badly. They are going to fight and claw, especially because they're in Group 1. They want to be up front when it comes to being able to fight for that scholarship money, and every spot is a couple of spots when we get down to that. So very, very important that Euroshack here. That's why you could see the very aggressive side draft trying to pull that driver of A.J. Hyder back for St. John's River.
Maybe the first time I think we've seen throughout this tournament where racing for P1 really might be worth it. It didn't really have much value last week, Taylor Burris, but here, think about it. Your winner of this heat, I believe, is going to start on pole for the final. 2nd place, going to start 4th. 3rd place, going to start, I believe, 7th.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, I'd have to say here. So it is going to be critical of how you set your car and try to go for those positions, because that just betters your positioning in the feature race here. Same thing with those in the who are not making it or transferring after the LCQ. We ride on board now with Daniel Falkenkamp from the University of Maine at Machias. He is trying everything to try and just get around these two, because if he's able to get around both Hyder and Yerashak, he is looking to be your pole sitter for the feature race, as he will send it to the top side, and that's what we've been seeing here. Everyone running up towards the top. That's where the better the grip handling is for these trucks, and he will now dive it all the way to the bottom to get around A.J. Hyder for second.
Can you take advantage of that top line, which really does look like it's working at 1 and 2, and then get some speed on the bottom in 3 and 4? Not everybody's going nearly as high up in 3 and 4 as they are 1 and 2. I saw most people running either that bottom line or the middle line, but you've got an opportunity to do something here. As Hyder starts to lose the track position, I wonder if the tires are going away on Hyder's car, and I wonder with a handful of laps to go, is he maybe going to have to worry about either one of the Ryans catching up to him?
It's looking to be that way, and as much as I thought Hyder was in a great position to not have to worry about a transfer battle, he's stuck on the top side. We talked about that win. It's shoving drivers up the racetrack. You can see Anderson, even Falkingham a lap ago or so, as he was trying to get by Hyder, kind of struggling to keep that car on the bottom. So Andrew not totally out of this thing yet. 3 to go. Can Hyder hang on? That's not going to help. A little bit of contact side by side for the transfer spot off at 2. Hyder falls out from the lead in just 2 laps. Unbelievable. Ryan Andrew takes the final spot right now with 3 to go.
How quickly things can change. A.J. Hyder was in a great spot, and now he's going to have to rally to get the track position from Ryan Andrew to have an automatic spot into the final of the Queen City Crown after he started 3rd on the grid. He's got to make some moves. Here he goes, sending it off to the inside. Andrew, though, definitely not afraid to step on the gas pedal, steering with the rear of his truck almost as much as he is the front.
You saw how last week A.J. Hyder was strong in the beginning of the race, but then slowly started to fade off. This is going to be a problem as he tries to get right on the bumper right there of Ryan Andrews to try and intimidate him as he wants to try to get into that transfer spot. White flag in the air this time around.
Connor Yarashak comfortably in front by 3/10 over Falkingham. Holmes, Anderson in good shape. It's all eyes on this battle between Ryan Andrew and A.J. Hyder. What are you willing to do to automatically lock your way into the final and not end up in the LCQ Blake McCandless?
Oh, and there's going to be a little bit of contact as they go into 3 and 4 up front. It's all Connor Yarashak, but this is the battle to try and automatically advance. It looks like it's not going to be enough for Hyder. Ryan Andrew is going to hang on to the 5th position as he passes him with 3 to go and is able to hang on to the checkered flag.
Ryan Andrews survives and will be racing for a shot at the scholarship money and the opportunity to win the Queen City Crown. He is the 5th driver to make it from this first heat, this first semifinal. Yarashak, Falkingham, Holmes, and Anderson also in the mix too. Those 5 going directly to the final.
Absolutely, and for Hyder, Ryan Arnold, Trupiano, Jake Hall, and Bradley, they're going to, along with a couple of others, as Russells, Vila, and Bowman, got work to do in the LCQ. It has to be a little bit patient for some drivers, as well as also try to get better handling on their trucks here for the next LCQ.
Working our way immediately into the second semifinal race of the Queen City Crown. That's where we are on our great big tournament grid. The blinking race right there is where we will head, and we turn our attention to Isaac Shelley, who carries the banner for UNOH this evening. Pole for Heat 2, time at 29.487 seconds to set pole for this semifinal. John Hagan from North Central Texas College joins him on the outside of row 1. Matthew Zwack, former driver in the Coke Series and representative for the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor, starts 3rd tonight. 4th on the grid is Triton College's Adam Garza. Dylan Basin from Pasco Hernando State College will roll off from the inside of row 3. Roll off from 6th. From Kettering University, it's Maverick Davis.
Moving on, as we take a look at row number 4, it is defending series champion Logan Clampett from California State University at Fullerton. Alongside him is Austin Johnson from Fresno State. And along in rounding out your top 10 is Zach Sprouse from George Mason University and Jake Inez from Belmont Abbey College. Row number 6 will see Mario Morenza from the University of Oklahoma and Jonathan Evans from Western Connecticut State University.
Douglas Newbiging, again, not the lap that I'm sure he would have wanted out of King's College, puts him back here in the 13th position, but certainly a driver that is more than capable, I think, of driving up from 13th up to that 5th position when it's all said and done. Again, if you can avoid the chaos that we had in that opening race, that I think we may just see again here in this one.
I think, sort of to your point, Blake, from that first seat, who is going to get the memo about making sure that you don't drive too hard on that opening lap when the tires are cold? We saw multiple drivers get loose on lap 1, and it ended up being a problem, Taylor, as we look at this Logitech G race analysis for semifinal number 2.
Absolutely. Just a quick rundown once again. It's the same thing as Heat 1. It's going to be 20 laps, fixed setup, top 5 advance to the feature race, and then, of course, 6 through 13, well, y'all got to go back to the LCQs and try again.
So an opportunity for these drivers to set this up. Another point here, and I think Newbiging is going to be a good example of this, Blake. You had the opportunity to race your way up, not only into the top 5 if you make it, but there's also definitely value if you could avoid the chaos and earn a good starting spot for the LCQ. Maybe you're not starting where you want to, but your race is not over yet. And as we get ready to roll, if you want more information on the eNASCAR College iRacing Series powered by the Play vs. College League, you can visit pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR for more information. Scan the QR code on the bottom portion of your screen for more information. 20 more laps, 13 more drivers, 5 going into the final. Everyone else heading to the LCQ as Isaac Shelley may be the best hope for UNOH in this Queen City Crown still remaining. Will lead us to green. John Hagan to the outside. Waiting, and going. Green flag out, off we go, and a good jump for everybody towards the front of the field. They stack up a little bit further back on the inside, so an opportunity for those up top. And moves wide a little bit further back.
Drivers starting to battle it out here. You got to be careful with how aggressive you want to be in this opening lap. You don't want to see what happened here in heat race number 1 happen in heat race number 2 for you as they rocket down the back straightaway. And already John Hagan right there leading the charge for the Texas as he works his way through and has to hold off Garza and Shelley, who are going to split the difference as they come off a 4.
Oh, Hagan got really loose there on the exit of turn 4. Had to gather it up. That's going to allow Garza to go to the race lead. Then Shelley. Hagan up back to 3rd, trying to fight off Matthew Zwack for 4th. And the 3 line a little bit further back as Austin Johnson's trying to take the high line and get a little bit of track position.
And it seems that that's going to be the going thought here for these drivers early on in this race, is trying to get up to that top side and protect it, to be able to use that draft that these trucks have. They punch a big hole in the air down the back straightaway here at Charlotte. Zwack's going to be able to do that to move up to 3rd. Sprouts tried to split them in the middle 3 wide in 1 and 2 last time around. This time he goes to the bottom, but 2 by 2, 3 rows deep, and somewhere in that there is a transfer spot that is up for grabs. And oh, by the way, how about Logan Clampett, a winner, the champion, and yet here he is on the outside looking in right now. Didn't think that we'd see Clampett in a position like this where he is in 8th, even just 3 or 4 laps into this one.
Started in 7th, now running 8th. Hasn't been running in the top 5 at all so far. Didn't particularly qualify well, so here's a testament to the value of track position, Taylor Burris. If you don't have it, it's going to be much more difficult to get it, I think, in week 2 than it was in week 1. Right now, Isaac Shelley, remember, he was pole sitter. Shelley now is the driver in the transfer spot. Maverick Davis is the one trying to chase it down to the outside to go on board with Jonathan Evans, who currently runs 9th.
Yeah, Jonathan Evans there from Western Connecticut State University. You see him just sawing at the wheel as you see Clampett make the move around the outside. That's not what you want to have happen here. You want to try and fight that position as best that you can, but it's so difficult here with the aero of these trucks, as well as also the tire wear and fall off of them. As we go on board with Jake Innes from Belmont Abbey College, going to give Super Mario a big push up there as you see the gaggle of cars 2 by 2 off turn 4.
Two really experienced drivers make it three drivers who have college series experience at the back of this field. And Mario Miranda from Oklahoma, Kings College's Douglas Newbigin, and then Belmont Abbey's Jake Iddish backing up the field here. I wonder if they're waiting for something to happen in front of them, because the possibility certainly exists, but there comes a point, Blake, where if you wait too long, you won't have an opportunity to race your way directly into the final. At some point, if you're deep in this field, I do think you have to go a little bit.
Oh, for sure, but the nice thing is that, just look at the gap from 9th back to 12th. I mean, you're talking about margins. People are side by side. They're all right on top of each other. And, this is, I think, the racing that we were going to see looking towards the semifinal to the final, because we're at this elite group of drivers that have gotten to this point. Again, 20-lap runs. There is a little bit of tire separation, fall off, but not a ton of it. You have to go. But the good thing is that everybody is so close right now. We saw it happening throughout that opening round. A ton of shuffling at the cut line to try to get up into that top 5. And I think the fact that, again, Clampett's still kind of mired back here in the 7th position, I think it goes to show you that if you didn't nail that qualifying lap, there is a ton of pressure on these drivers right now to try to get those spots and to get them quickly. As Shelley Johnson right now, that's that battle for that 5th position. Side by side, little contact made. Is John Hagan. He has the best view of it. He's in right now. They're side by side behind him. That's exactly what he wants to see out of his rear bumper.
Just take a look at the hardest chargers, the biggest movers in the seat. Dylan Basin got that track position early, rolled off from 5th, now is your race leader. Austin Johnson, you see right there in the camera of John Hagan's machine from Fresno State. He's rolled that top line for pretty much the entirety of this semifinal, and Johnson finds himself just on the outside looking in 6th, and that's bouncing back and forth between he and Isaac Shelley, representing the University of Northwestern Ohio. So I think there may be something to getting the track position while everyone might be sleeping and getting warmed up for this race. But if you end up burning off your tires, Taylor Burrish, what good does it do you? Do we end up in a position where you see somebody fall off like AJ Hyder, or can you maintain the track position to stay in the top 5 and make sure you're racing for the money?
Well, that's where we're at this point of the race, where we're going to start seeing how well you take care of your tires, because for drivers like AJ Hyder, it was about with 5 laps to go is when you start to see him starting to fall further and further behind. We're now into that threshold where we could see some of those drivers work their way up through the field and then start to fall back, depending on how well they take care of their equipment.
Here comes Logan Clampett looking to the high line. If you want more information on how to start your iRacing career, you can log on to iRacing.com today. I'm starting to see Austin Johnson slide a little bit as he used up the rear tires on his truck more than he needed to. He's been running the high line for most of this heat. Is this the moment, Blake McCandless, where he starts to pay for that?
I don't know. It seems like about the halfway point is when we started to see drivers start to separate, or kind of a little bit of the fall off start to show up here. And again, it's because these drivers, they're so wide open here. I mean, the fact that it's overcast, it's early in the day, track temperature's cold. And I think that's the fact that, or kind of represented by the fact that, yes, we have drivers that are working the outside lane, but they're still pretty much married to that seam in the middle of 1 and 2, or even as we go into 3 and 4 here. You don't see drivers on the wall. There's so much grip down there. Zach Sprouse, big slide for the George Mason driver. He's able to gather it up, but again, with the fact that everybody's so close up here, that might be enough time lost. 2 seconds back might not be enough to try and claw back into this one with 8 to go.
He was not happy with Douglas Newbigin, and it also backed up Jake Innes as well. So those 3 at the back of this field are going to need a lot of help to be able to have any shot at making the final just out of this semifinal. Meanwhile, Logan Clampett has started to close the gap on Isaac Shelley, and steadily and surely, Taylor Burris, he has raced his way up through this field and is starting to challenge for a transfer spot as Newbigin goes around further in the back.
Tough break there for Douglas Newbigin, but how about this? We will see the action of Logan Clampett being that taking care of his equipment. Here's the replay of what happened to Douglas Newbigin. He is in that mix. Right there's the contact as he tried to get back onto the back bumper of Zach Sprouse. And as they do so, coming out of turn at number 4, tough break right there as we watch the battle here. Further up the field, Basin holding off Garza and Matthew Zwack, your top 3.
I think this makes for an interesting case study between Dylan Basin and Austin Johnson. Those were the 2 drivers who pushed early on to try and get some track position. Basin got to the clean air and has been able to hang on to it. So, Blake, I would imagine his tires might be a little bit more worn than Garza or Zwack or Hagan or Shelley, but I think this speaks to the value of clean air. If you got it, you can manage your tires a lot more easily, and you can almost save being out front, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's great for Dylan Bay. Oh, as we have trouble back in the field, Mario Miranda stuffed into the outside wall. That's going to be huge damage. The toe's going to be knocked out on that truck. Another one hard in the inside wall. They're not going to be able to make it the rest of the way. This was all behind Clampett, who still clings on to the 6th position. He's not in a transfer spot just yet. It's broken up the back part of the field. Johnson, 2 seconds back. He's going to be out of the draft. So it may just be these two right here, Shelley and Clampett, 5 to go to settle it out for that final transfer spot into the final.
It is a pretty straightforward run for the top 6. 5 of them are going to make it. 1 of them is going to the LCQ. Logan Clampett trying to push the issue on Isaac Shelley. I've also noticed John Hagan starting to get a little bit more loose with that truck for the back of the field. Remember, he was the one that got loose from the front of this field on the opening lap as Logan Clampett continues to push the issue on Isaac Shelley on the bottom of the racetrack.
Shelley trying to fire off the first one here for UNOH to try and beat their rival of UNC Charlotte here tonight to make it into the feature. And he is doing it in an amazing fashion, holding off defending series champion. But here comes Clampett with a big run. He'll shut the door right in front of Shelley as they rocket down the back straightaway and has a little bit of breathing room. What can Shelley do with 3 to go in order to try and get back around and transfer on?
Logan Clampett showcasing that championship pedigree that he earned in the spring by winning the College Series title 1 season ago with a fabulous drive to race his way into the transfer positions and around Isaac Shelley, who now is going to have 2 laps and change to respond to Clampett and try and get back into the automatic transfer positions.
And how fitting is it here, Dylan Basin looking for a cybersecurity degree right now. He's having to protect this race lead right now from Adam Garza, who is on the charge, coming around to 1 to go. Zwack not going to be much of a factor here. It's going to be these two settling it out for the top spot. Is Dylan Basin, can he hang on? Can Adam Garza mount to charge here as Clampett continues to pull away in that battle for 5th?
Logan Clampett continuing to drive off the front of Isaac Shelley, whose handling on that truck has gone away as the semifinal has progressed. Dylan Basin going to lead this group out of turn 4, and Basin is going to come across the stripe and claim the 2nd semifinal. Basin, Garza, Zwack, Hagan, and Logan Clampett drove his way up from 7th to 5th after falling a little bit further back in that semifinal, but he makes it in. So Basin, Garza, Zwack, Hagan, Clampett, your 5 going on straight to the final. Everybody else from Shelley on the back will race in the last chance qualifier.
And not only that, but some big names that are having to go into the LCQ, like Mario Miranda, Zach Sprouse, Jake Innes, Douglas Newbigging, all of them who are favorites going into that LCQ. Big issues there. Hopefully they can try to find a way to recover.
There were a lot of fast trucks in the back end of that running order who got caught up in incidents. No doubt about it, Taylor Burris. So certainly something to watch. That's going to make this really fun. Here's a look at where we are on the bracket. It's time for semifinal number 3, the last of these semifinals before the LCQ. And this will start off with John Forbes Jr., former winner in the College Series from Saddleback College. He set a fast time of 29.491 seconds to take the pole in Heat 3. Sacramento State's Dylan Orr will start on the outside of row 1. Ball State's Daniel Nanny rolls off from the 3rd position. Ohio State's Matthew Morton will begin tonight from 4th in semifinal number 3. Chris Bryant from Methodist University begins tonight from 5th in semifinal number 3. And how about Bradley Erickson representing the Sun Devils of Arizona State University? A roll off from the 6th position on the grid.
Row number 4, we will see Joey Priebe right there representing Virginia Tech, and then one of the other University of Northwestern Ohio drivers, Tyler Skozin, in 8th position. Rounding out your top 10 is Nick Miller from Kutztown University of Pennsylvania and the University of Vermont, Lily Frazier. In row number 6, we'll see the one and only University of North Carolina at Charlotte, Blake Wynn, and University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Nathan Scott in 12th position.
Rounding out this heat here, again, a surprising name back here representing the Yukon Huskies. How about Jose Solis Jr. starting back here in the 13th position? And again, we've kind of seen this in every single heat, Taylor and James, that there's somebody that seems to be one of the stronger drivers that we see on the iRacing service, but all the pressure that's being put on this lap, they're scraping the wall, they're not putting down a time, and forcing them to kind of have to reconcile with the fact they got, about 8 positions to move in just 20 laps.
Once again, a look at the Logitech G race analysis for the Queen City Crown Taylor Burris. Semifinal number 3, 20 laps once again. Top 5 to the final. Everybody else to the LCQ. And will we see more chaos on lap 1 like we saw with a lot of our first round races last week in particular? And speaking of chaos, if you want the opportunity to see some of the best in sim racing and in the world of eNASCAR, you can tune into eNASCAR.com/live at 8 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, October 7th, just over 2 weeks from tonight, for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship race from Homestead Miami Speedway. 4 drivers will be racing for it. 1 driver walks away $100,000 richer and the champion of the Coke Series, and with the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Cup in tow, Taylor Burris. And that will be fun live from the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Uptown Charlotte, North Carolina.
3 former champions, 1 newcomer coming into the championship Final Four. Make sure to tune in and catch all the action. And I got to say, it's going to be exciting to see who comes out on top. But first, we got to talk about the excitement that we're seeing here with these drivers. A lot of things to talk about and look forward to with our college drivers set to go racing in semifinal number 3.
John Forbes Jr. won at Talladega in the spring earlier this year under the old format, but is an eNASCAR College iRacing Series race winner. Can he become the first eNASCAR College iRacing Series tournament winner? We'll find that out tonight amongst all of the many pieces and storylines that will play themselves out as we go green flag racing in semifinal number 3. Forbes, Alt, Manny, Morton, Bryant, your top 5 to transfer as it stands. And everybody amongst the top 6 saying double file, everybody else in the back going a little bit single file, almost as if I think they're trying to anticipate the chaos, but Solis with a big move down low.
So far, so good for our competitors here as we watch John Forbes Jr. leading the train on the bottom of the racetrack. How about Dylan Alt running up towards the top side as he'll shut the door on Alt of turn number 4, and make sure to hold on as here comes the Ohio State of Matthew Morton with a big push to give Alt the speed he needs to get around for second place.
Oh, Daniel Nanny with a big slide there in turn 2, and Nanny had been struggling with the handling on that truck to open up this race. Was very loose in 3 and 4 last time by, and just managed to catch his truck in front of Matthew Morton, and that sends, I believe, Joey Freed representing the Hokies of Virginia Tech up to that 3rd line. But Nanny will lose a little bit of track position to Erickson, who has jumped up 3 spots carrying the banner that Garrett Fitton laid down for Arizona State University in previous seasons. It's Erickson now carrying Sparky and the fork for the Sun Devils, and he and Nanny are going to make contact down the backstretch.
And I mean, you could see it right there with Morton's onboard through the corner about how much he's having to work that wheel. Again, when a lot of drivers are able to smoothly hold it kind of in one spot, you could tell that they're handling very well, and at least he's able to get by there. Again, Morton had a big moment a lap or 2 ago up into 3rd. You can see Daniel Nanny doing the same, trying to get that truck back under control. Doesn't look like there's any damage that would be causing that looseness, but just those cold tires. It doesn't matter how many times we go through these heats, these cold tires really sneak up on these drivers. Is now it looks like Erickson going to have control of that 5th and final position. How about the Monarch, the golf team member there from Methodist University, and Chris Bryant trying to chase down that final transfer spot in.
Chris Bryant, representing Methodist University, a native of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Goes to school in Greenville, of course, where Methodist's campus can be found, working the high side and trying to find a way around Bradley Erickson to get a spot in the top 5 and transfer directly to the feature. Here is a little bit of the action earlier on in this race. Some of the contact between Daniel Nanny and Bradley Erickson on the backstretch that caused them to lose some track position and allowed Matthew Morton to go inside the top 3.
Absolutely. And how about Bradley Erickson? Of course, not only is he representing Arizona State, but also competed in the Arca Menards West Championship in 2022 and 2023, as he is looking to try to work his way further up the running order. Great drive for him with ASU. And as they head down the back straightaway, there you see John Forbes Jr. trying to hold off the eNASCAR driver of Dylan Olive, who is putting immense pressure as they go side by side. Morton taps the wall off turn number 4 to gather it back up. And of course, for the driver right there of John Forbes Jr., really good drive that he's been going on here with his run as he is trying to hold on. And of course, we talked about a little bit last week, he loves restoring some old cars. He's got a couple of Camaros he's working on right now as we speak when he's not preparing for college.
Not a bad way to live, to restore old cars in real life and then speed in virtual cars here in the sim racing world. We go on board with Bradley Erickson, the driver representing Arizona State University, who finished 4th in his first round race in week 1 and was 9th in his second round race to transfer. Just look at the onboards of your first and second place drivers down. John Forbes Jr. on the left, Dylan Alt on the right.
Let's see that driver on the right, Dylan Alt out of Sacramento State, one of many that are pursuing an engineering degree. He's looking for mechanical engineering. Sacramento State close to his home, allowing him the opportunity to continue to compete in a bunch of different venues here on the iRacing side of things, eNASCAR, and then even over here in the College Series, trying to put that love of motorsports into his degree as well. Still Morton and Nanny battling for 4th at the moment. Chris Bryant finally breaking through into that 5th position. And we've seen it a couple of times, guys. Those drivers that are down on the bottom in 3 and 4, they can make some moves here once we get about halfway through with everybody, I guess, trying to protect up top is the best way that I could describe it.
Protecting up top, but how valuable does that become, especially in the second half of these races? As you see Erickson look to the inside of Daniel Nanny. This is for the transfer position as it stands. So big drive there from Erickson on the bottom. Won't have the opportunity to clear Nanny, though. Nanny will get that run, maybe a little bit of toe off of Chris Bryant and draw even with Erickson at the stripe.
One thing I gotta love with Daniel Nanny and the entire Ball State University as well is the amazing opportunities that they have. In fact, I talked to Daniel Nanny about that as we watch him trying to find his way back into the top 5. And Ball State's one of the first sponsored sim racing programs that has a scholarship with Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, which is a great stepping stone if you want to get into the world of motorsports. As we watch the battle for the race lead, as here comes Dylan Alt with a big head of steam as Erickson holds off Nanny as they go 3 wide heading off into 1.
How about Daniel Nanny trying to work the middle between Erickson and Bryant for a spot? And how about Nathan Scott just behind? He started 12th on the grid. Where did Nathan Scott come from? As Daniel Nanny gets sideways, just loses control of his truck. Nathan Scott has driven from the back basically to the very edge of the transfer positions of the running rebel for the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. Has driven himself into the picture for a spot in the top 5.
Reached out to Brent Arbandale, who is one of the main people over for the esports side of the Rebel gaming community, and they're excited about watching Nathan Scott out here tonight and look forward to seeing what he can do.
Worth noting that the football team at UNLV plays in the same building that the Raiders do at Allegiant Stadium. Do you think they could maybe throw him up on the big screen in there, Blake, perhaps, if he gets the job done tonight?
That's a thought as we have a battle for the race lead, and now we have 3 wide behind the transfer. Again, these are drivers that are all hurting each other. They're battling right now for 7th, so allowing that lead pack to slip away. I think we saw somebody kind of scurry off into the turf here on the front straightaway here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. But Scott and, of course, the Virginia Tech driver. By the way, I was racing somebody else earlier today on iRacing that had a Virginia Tech scheme. So the Hokies well represented on the iRacing service right now, but unfortunately not working so well for the Hokie in this race. 7th and falling further back with the battling that we've been seeing. This is Dylan Alt continuing his charge to the lead, and now Matthew Morton has caught this top 3 as well.
These top three right on top of one another, and then Ericsson, Bryant, and Scott effectively working together as everybody else behind races for what at this point would effectively either be scraps or maybe a little bit of starting position in the LCQ, but those battles deeper in the field not going to make a difference so far as the transfer spots are concerned. The big one to keep an eye on right now is Chris Bryant versus Nathan Scott right at the top of your picture. That is for the transfer. Here comes Matthew Morton looking for the lead in the semifinal.
Morton doing everything he can. He knows that the Ohio State University is number one in the college football rankings. He wants to be number one here in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series as he tries to find his way around John Forbes Jr. as we watch the battle for that transfer spot between Scott and Bryant. Raiders versus the Methodists as they come out of turn number 4. Big contact. Around goes Scott as he comes off a 4.
He came up into Nathan Scott and spins Nathan Scott out in what had been the best drive throughout any of the semifinals. Gets put right towards the back of the field, and Scott's going to have to charge the field in the semifinal as Chris Bryant is going to reclaim the 5th position. Nick Miller now the one who would lead the charge if they can get it to Bryant. There's about maybe a 4/10 of a second gap between Bryant and Nick Miller representing the Golden Bears of Kutztown University in Pennsylvania.
And that's a truck that Chris Bryant, the last several laps, has really struggled to hang on. You can see just chasing up the track, gets loose on the bottom, has to chase it up the racetrack, is trying to stay in that battle for Scott. Unfortunately, just moves up and tags him. And again, that's part of what makes this so difficult here for Scott. Didn't do anything wrong, was running there in the 5th position, and now Bryant kind of has to try to do the same thing again here. 2 laps to go, pressure being applied from Miller to try to take that final spot away. 2 laps to go.
You can see Bryant wearing his VR setup, one of the few drivers in this field to take advantage of the opportunity, and a few VR updates come in the most recent iRacing build that was released earlier this month. But it is a big task that Chris Bryant has in him because Nick Miller has been charging and has been significantly quicker over the last few laps. 3/10 difference in the lap times between Bryant and Miller as they come out of turn 4. White flag for these two. One of them is going to make it directly into the final. One of them is going to the LCQ as John Forbes Jr. continues to lead.
Incredible drive here as we watch that final transfer spot between Miller and Bryant. Miller on the bottom of the racetrack right there. Bryant trying to work on the outside. He has a little bit of a half-a-nose advantage. Contact between the two. They're banging towards as they come into 3.
Oh, Chris Bryant trying to drive down into Nick Miller. Nick Miller was already there. Wouldn't have any of it, but Bryant's going to have the opportunity maybe to pull the crossover. Looks to the inside at the start-finish line. Contact there, but not enough. John Forbes Jr. takes the semifinal, and Nick Miller with the drive there to run down Chris Bryant at the end of that semifinal and take the last of the spots automatically into our final. So Forbes Jr., Morton, Alt, Ericsson, Miller, the 5 that immediately transfer. Bryant on back, LCQ bound.
Yeah, but yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how this all plays out amongst them here. So we'll see how this all plays out in the LCQ.
Chris Bryant, Jose Solis Jr. and company, Frazier, Nanny, and Nathan Scott, who I think is going to be very entertaining to watch in this last chance qualifier. Going to start dead last, but Blake McGinnis, we saw just how fast he was racing his way up near the transfer spot.
Well, and that's something that at least makes you think that in the LCQ here in this semifinal that you will have a chance. Again, we'll take 10 as we look at the bracket now. Just 2 more rounds of racing to go. Can't believe it all started last week. This is how they're going to line up for the LCQ.
Hyder fell out of an automatic transfer spot, but gets pulled for the LCQ. Shelley is there and was quick. Bryant lost it at the end. Arnold Johnson and Jose Solis Jr., your first sextet of drivers in this LCQ.
Absolutely. A couple of drivers we got to keep an eye on here is the University of Northwestern Ohio, Tyler Skozen, Joey Priebe, and Jake Innes, some of the ones. And Super Mario, I have to say, is a surprise to be in the LCQ.
And as we look further on back here, again, a lot of these drivers involved in incidents. I think the biggest one that sticks out to me here, Alexander Russell. He mentioned his qualifying struggles that put him in this position. He's going to have to overcome a 16th place starting spot. Zach Sprouse, again, he had a big save in his heat as well for George Mason University, starting 14th. has to overcome starting a little bit further back on this graphic than I'm sure he would like.
A lot of fast drivers a little bit further back in here. Daniel Nanny from Ball State, Nathan Scott from UNLV, the two that immediately jump out. And I'm curious to see what Kentucky's James Bowman has to offer. Got loose there, lap one, semifinal number one. We never really saw what kind of pace he had. He could be a bit of a wild card in this, but a lot of drivers either got caught up in incidents or maybe caught up a little bit with battles. We saw the fight that Zach Sprouse had with Douglas Newbegin. We're going to keep an eye on a lot of these drivers, especially coming from 10th on back. As we take a look here a little bit further back, this was what happened between Zach Sprouse and Douglas Newbegin.
Yeah, Zach Sprouse right there. That's the part right there where we're going to see what happened between Newbegin and Sprouse, because we saw the tempers flaring for sure. Will they behave in the LCQ, or are we going to see another knockout fight between the two of them?
And worth noting that there was contact between Sprouse and Newbegin before what we just showed in the replay as well. So that was a sort of multi-part incident as we take a look here at our Logitech G race analysis for the LCQ Blade.
Same distance taking place here in our race analysis presented by Logitech G. Only 20 laps, but the biggest difference is top 10. 11th through 24th, well, we appreciate you coming out. We'll even give you some points for your effort, but unfortunately, it's going to be back to the drawing board for those drivers. 11th through 24th, going to have to head back to class and start studying up for Daytona here in about a month's time. But top 10 is what we're looking for here. So over half this field going to get dropped here from this LCQ.
How much are drivers willing to push it, especially in that first lap? Is there going to be a major incident turn 4, lap 1? We've seen it in some of our first and second round races and in the semifinals as well, Taylor Burris. I think something to keep an eye on, at least at the initial start of this.
Absolutely. We're going to see how that all plays out. Also, keep an eye to see who takes care of their stuff here and learned a little something in their heat race. Are we going to see a driver maybe back it off a little bit, try to save some tires so they're there at the end?
That's a great point. Some drivers that maybe might not necessarily push the issue and maybe might just wait for drivers ahead of them to make mistakes. That's certainly a strategy that could work and in some cases has worked at points throughout this Queen City Crown. But with this field as stacked as we've seen throughout this tournament, does it work now, or do you really have to race your way in on speed? Green flag is out. We're underway with the last chance qualifier. A little bit of a stack up on the high line. Drivers already looking 3 wide, a little bit further back. That's Jake Innes, I think, who's going to the top line here, and we are all sorts of 3 wide further back in this field.
3 wide action as they come off a turn number 2. Can we keep it clean and green for the moment? So far, A.J. Hyder now goes to the bottom of the racetrack. He wants to try to maintain, but here comes Brian around the outside, and we got a couple running right up against the outside wall off turn 4.
Where do they go? Does everybody keep it together? Is there any sort of craziness here? A little bit of trouble further back in the field, but we keep it rolling towards the front end of this field. Looks like Maverick Davis, I think Nathan Scott are the other two that end up in trouble. So now we start turning our attention. It was Joey Freed that went high and 3 wide early on in this race. He's still up there alongside Alexander Russell. The problem is that they're racing for 14 and 15. They need a little bit more track position.
And they do big move, big send on the bottom there from Newbegin, who's actually able to get the spot over Alexander Russell, who I think is kind of torn about what you want to do here. You already only have 18 laps to go, but look in front of you. You have Hall, who's a transfer spot. They're 2 wide. They've been 3 wide for a majority of these opening laps. It's hard to know exactly where to go or what strategy you want to try to employ, because you don't want to be caught up in a wreck. That's going to be the end of your night. But what do you do here? This is such a difficult decision. You can see Zach Sprouse right there. Big moment that he has. Big wiggle and a spinner. Molston State goes around on the front straightaway. It's Arnold. He's going to fall out, and that's going to shift that transfer line up in that pack.
Contact with Jake Innes at Belmont Abbey. Those two get together. They end up sideways and way deep in the running order, and that now means that your transfer spot belongs to, as we've got a little bit more trouble further back in the field. More trucks going around, more trucks going sideways. Daniel Nanny currently in the transfer position.
That was Zach Sprouse, who unfortunately, one of your favorites, as more drivers hit the wall. Russell taps the wall up turn number 4 as we take a look at the replay of what just happened here in the chaos. And we'll see the Molotov driver of Arnold go around on the front straightaway after that contact. And then, of course, you had the chaos with Sprouse. Unfortunate for him. He'll take it down pit road along with Bowman, Krieb, and Wynn. So for the UNC Charlotte 49ers, they will not get to race here at their home track.
The 49ers, 7 drivers make it, and now 0 looking at a very likely scenario where they're not represented at all in the final 25, which I know will be a disappointment for that program. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on battles further up in the field, Jose Solis Jr. and Austin Johnson racing for 4th and 5th. Further back, Daniel Nanny now has the transfer spot, looking to the inside of Clemson's Jake Hall. But Douglas Newbigging, Willie Fraser, Luke Bradley all starting to make their way up as we get a good look at what happened to the back straight between Preeve and Arnold.
Yeah, you saw the contact, and then, of course, collects Newbigging along with several other drivers, including Fraser, who still is in the hunt, but that contact could cause some issues as we watch the battle for second between Shelley and Bryant, as those two will try to jockey for position as we watch A.J. Hyder continue to pull away.
Correction, that was Preeve and Zach Sprouse from George Mason. So the two drivers representing schools from the Commonwealth of Virginia getting together as we got this great battle here up in second. Chris Bryant really had to hang on at the end of his semifinal, but doing a nice job working through this LCQ and would end up with decent track position in the final if he can hang on. But we saw how that truck faded in the semifinal. So the question is, did he learn? And will he run these last 12 laps a little bit better than he did the final 10 in that semifinal? Blake McCandless.
I wonder if that's going to be on his mind. Trubiano looking on back from Jose Solis Jr., which, by the way, what an impressive charge that Jose Solis Jr. wasn't quite able to do it in his heat earlier, but an impressive drive up into what is a solid top 5 spot right now. I'm also impressed, too. A couple of these drivers, Vila, Russell, Ennis, a few of those that got a little bit of damage in some of those incidents, but they were able to keep on going. They've done an impressive job. There's another look at the Yukon Husky. Jose Solis Jr. right now running in the 5th position. Perhaps can even get a couple more, but definitely somebody who has kind of carved his way up through this field to this point.
I would say realistically, looking all the way through the back of this pack, Jake Ennis is the last one that might have a shot. Jake Hall for Clemson currently is your transfer truck, but there are about 5 or 6 trucks behind Hall that are right on the doorstep and certainly in a position to make a move if they so choose. Further up the field, look at all the experience. We talked about that as a factor in this college series and in the way this tournament has played out. The names that are there that have been there, namely Sildes, Trupiano, Miranda, Scosin, all drivers with prior experience. All drivers currently inside the top 10.
Oh, as we try to get around the lap car of Zach Sprouse right there, that was a cause for concern for some drivers as they try to gather themselves back up and get back into formation as Newbigging, and there is Mario Miranda working his way through, trying to hold off in the 6th position as they work their way down into turn number 4 and on the front straightaway. A couple of drivers close for comfort against that outside wall.
Mario Miranda in his, I guess we can call his truck the Sooner Scooter, perhaps, tonight. I suppose that works, but has that thing working pretty well. And oh, by the way, one of the harder chargers in this field, up 5 spots from where he started, rolled off just outside of the cutoff in 11th, currently riding in the 6th position and looking pretty good in the Crimson and Cream.
And he is the Detroit Mercy driver. Was talking about him just a little bit earlier. Andy Trubiano, you can see still working that outside line, trying to build up that run as they get to 1 and 2. This is on board with Daniel Nanny. You see there's a little bit of effect of that dirty air running directly behind Trubiano, but they're able to stay wide open enough here, especially early in these runs. It's hard to say early in these runs. We only have 8 to go, but that's the case here for Daniel Nanny. Got to be really careful, though, in this side-by-side situation with Scosin. You want to try to make up that position. You want to improve, but there is risk involved. If you pinch that driver too low, you're risking them losing the air on their door, moving up into you. And what have we said since the drop of the green flag a week ago? It's all about minimizing mistakes in this format. And, again, that's a mistake you don't want to make. If you're Nanny or if you're Scosin, putting yourself in a position here with 7 to go to potentially find yourself out of a transfer spot.
This is walking the tightrope, I think, at its very clearest and cleanest in the college series. Just get a good look further up the field here. Chris Bryant, Isaac Shelley, all trailing A.J. Hyder, who has led this last chance qualifier pretty much from the drop and has not had any issues whatsoever. So a little bit of a good spread further back in the top 5, top 6, but all these drivers pretty safely in the top 10 as it stands. It's Hall and Newbigging. That's where the line is at this point. They're just on the edge of the picture here.
Yeah, both of those two drivers, I'm keeping an eye on their lap times. They're pretty much running identical laps for the most part, switching off faster lap times between the two of them. So it's going to be a coin toss to see who will come out, as now Evans will move up into 11th. He wants to try and challenge Hall for that 10th position, as we keep an eye on Skozen, who's kind of being the gatekeeper a little further up the road as we watch the battle for 11th between Evans and Newbigging.
Big move here for Jonathan Evans. He got caught up in trouble in his semifinal and has had to claw, and I mean properly claw, his way into the start at 23rd on the grid. Almost last. Now almost within touching distance of a top 10 spot. So quite the drive here for Jonathan Evans.
That it has been, and trying to continue that here for just 4 more laps. You can see that final spot that he has to chase down right in front of him, and if anything, it's going to get a little bit of help here with the fact that they're side by side, but also he's trapped in a side-by-side battle as well. Now Hall falls back to 10th. Big momentum here off the corner for Newbigging coming around this time. 3 laps to go, and truck length behind. He's there. He's got a shot.
The opportunity is going to be there for Jonathan Evans if he can get around Douglas Newbigging, but he's got to find a way to make the pass around the Kings College driver. This is the battle for the transfer spot. Everybody else going to need major help if they want a shot at this. So it's this trio of which we will see one driver potentially make it, and Newbigging got loose off the corner, and that might be the opportunity that Jonathan Evans needs. 1 spot left and 2 laps to go get it.
2 laps to go as they watch on. How about the battle a little further back from Brian between Shelley and Johnson? It's also critical that these drivers are going to fight a little bit up towards the front, because that gives them better starting position in the feature race here in a few short moments as we keep an eye further back. Nanny and Hall, and then throw in Evans. These are the drivers to watch here. Who is going to transfer? Newbigging struggling for grip off turn 4.
Newbigging losing control of the car. A.J. Hyder in control in front. Jake Hall trying to tuck in underneath Daniel Nanny, and Jonathan Evans, for as much as he has driven up through this field, is going to have to send it pretty hard into turn 3 if he wants a shot at this.
Just 1 more lap for Evans. He's going to have to make a big send here into 3 and 4. Or is the Tiger from Clemson going to be able to hang on? A valiant effort for Jonathan Evans, but it looks like it's not going to be enough. Nanny will slip up off the corner, but they will stay in a top 10 transfer spot. Hyder gets the win, and Hall hangs on for the final spot in our final round.
And so we have our 25. Hyder, Bryant, Johnson, Shelley, Solis Jr., Miranda, Trupiano, Skozen, Nanny, and Hall are the 10 drivers that are going to advance and complete the field of 25 for the final. Taylor Burris here are your first drivers on the outside looking in.
Unfortunately for these drivers, 11th on back. It's back to the classroom, back to the drawing board. You at least get a B, I would have to say. You don't get an A because you don't make it to the feature, but a B, B minus for sure for making it this far into this round in this event at this week. I got to say, big round of applause, but we'll hopefully see them at Daytona.
Those drivers who finished on the back end of the LCQ still get points. Everybody else racing for an opportunity in scholarship money, which we will witness when we come back. You are watching coverage of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Play vs. College League from Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're back with the finals after this.
On paper, it's easy. Win and advance.
Bell's gonna drive to victory!
But the truth, it's harder than the road they drive
They
on.
spin across the line! Wow!
12 drivers remain. Open to match dreams with destiny and claim a cup filled with history.
Are you ready? Let's go!
The NASCAR playoffs continue at Kansas on USA.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo!
My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
This portion of the broadcast is brought to you by Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. Play vs. College League, the largest collegiate community bringing in the new era of esports for students across the country. Learn more at pcl.gg. And by NASCAR 25. Racing onto consoles on October 14th and Steam on November 11th. For more information, visit NASCAR25.com. Welcome back to coverage of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series powered by the Play vs. College League. We're about to get set with the finals of the Queen City Crown from Charlotte Motor Speedway. But before we do, if you are a registered driver who has competed in at least one time attack throughout the College Series season, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win a racing prize pack, including a Logitech G923 True Force racing wheel and pedal set for the Xbox or the PC, and iRacing credits. You can find more information and rules available at pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR. 25 drivers have survived amongst our original field of 120 to compete for 50 laps and the opportunity to claim the Queen City Crown. Taylor Burris, it is almost time to find out who is the best and who's going to win the first ever eNASCAR College iRacing Series tournament.
Who's going to receive top honors, who studied from last week through the LCQs and heat races that we saw today, who is going to be able to find their way, take care of their tires, take care of their equipment, and avoid the chaos that we're about to see here tonight. That's going to be what's critical amongst these drivers, and it's going to be exciting. Everyone's ready to go. It's time to give out some cash prizes and some more points.
And Blake McCandless, it's an opportunity for these drivers to get a leg up in the point standings as well, because these drivers are going to earn the most points, and they're ready to try and either reclaim the championship if you're Logan Clampett or take it away from them if you're someone else.
And again, you have to take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves, because there's no guarantee that you make it to the finals at Daytona or Iowa or several of these events that we have coming up. So maximizing everything, taking advantage of the opportunity that you are here. You survived up to this point. You have to be able to take advantage of that, because crowning a champion this season is going to be unlike any that we've seen in College Series history, because who knows if you're going to even make every feature race. That could definitely be a possibility. So have to take advantage of it.
Absolutely, I think hit the nail on the head, especially when you consider how nuts Daytona is going to be. We have made it to the end of the bracket. We have competed in 14 races. We are set to go for race number 15, the final of the Queen City Crown. Here is our grid. Connor Yarashak, representing the Dinos of the University of Calgary, starts on pole. Who's outside? Pasco Hernando State College's Dylan Basin. John Forbes Jr. from Saddleback College, the third winner of a semifinal. Daniel Falkingham, who has won races in this series before, representing the University of Maine and Machias, starts fourth. Fifth on the grid is Triton College's Adam Garza, and racing from the sixth spot on the grid for the Ohio State University, it's Matthew Morton.
Moving on into row number 4, we'll find Timothy Holmes from Horry Georgetown Technical College, and representing the Wolverines, University of Michigan's Matthew Zwack. Moving on to the top 10 in row 5, Dylan Alt from Sacramento State, and of course Jackson Anderson representing Oklahoma State University here in the top 10. In row 6 from North Central Texas College, John Hagan and Bradley Erickson representing the Sun Devils at Arizona State University.
Back in row 7 and starting in the 13th position, how about the man from Des Moines Area Community College? Got the shades on. He's looking for a good run tonight. Ryan Andrew starting in 13th. How about Cal State Fullerton driver Logan Clampett starting from 14th? See if he's got enough time to make his way to the front of the field. Nick Miller for Kutztown University of Pennsylvania starting 15th. A.J. Hyder just fresh off of a win in the LCQ for St. John's River State College going from 16th. Chris Bryant able to hang on despite that loose condition for the Methodist University Monarch starting inside row number 9. And 18th to Austin Johnson, the Bulldog from Fresno State.
Rolling off from the 20th position will be Jose Solis Jr. to his inside, UNOH's Isaac Shelley. So the UNOH driver and Jose Solis Jr. from UConn rolling off from 19th and 20th. Mario Miranda begins from the inside of row 11, the Oklahoma Sooner, and Andy Trubiano racing for the University of Detroit Mercy starts 22nd. Tyler Scozen for UNOH. Daniel Nanny from Ball State rolling off from the 24th spot. Last on the grid, 25th, the Clemson Tiger, Jake Hall. Going to try and go after the big time money as we look at our Logitech G race analysis for the final round of the Queen City Crown. Blake McCandless.
Well, finally, we get down to what these drivers have been building up to since before we started racing last week in the preliminary round, all the way back in the time attack. 50 laps. That is it. We're still on the same setup that we've had throughout the remainder of this event, but a 75-mile dash to the end. They will have 2 tire sets available. There will be caution flags thrown, which again is going to be different than what we've had up to this event at this point. So caution flags will be thrown. And then, of course, what all these drivers came here to try to take home at the end of the night, $3,000 to the winner. The most points available to the winner. It's going to be exciting.
And worth noting, top 6 will end up with scholarship money. $3,000 to the winner, $1,500 to second, $1,000 to third, and then $700, $500, and $300 in scholarship money to 4th, 5th, and 6th, respectively. So top 6 walking away with money, everybody walking away with points, but one driver, Taylor Burris, going to have the opportunity to claim the crown as the winner of the first ever eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by Play vs. College League and tournament in history. So bragging rights and a place in sim racing immortality on the line as we get set for 50 laps to finish off the Queen City Crown. Green flag is out for the final round, and Connor Yurashak will lead the field to green and try and go back-to-back in wins here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Good jump for him. A little bit of action further back. Double file pretty much all the way through this field as they come up the solid into turn 1.
Field works their way up through the speed, up the gears. They're going to try to keep it calm and clean on the opening lap as they come out of turn number 2. You see the blistering speeds, approaching speeds of 180 miles an hour as they head off into turn 3.
Everybody, I think, minding the cold tires. I think we've seen enough of that to where we understand what kind of problem that can be, especially for these drivers at the front of the field. As Yershak now starting to stretch it out on Dylan Basin, John Forbes Jr. thought about peeking to the inside. They've separated themselves still right around, call it maybe 13th, 14th. Logan Clampett is clear of Nick Miller. We're starting to see 2 packs develop
very quickly, and again, it's usually taken a couple laps before we see this type of separation, considering the fact that we haven't seen near as many slip-ups. Again, these are the best of the best. There's a reason these drivers have advanced all the way through from 120 drivers down to this final 25 that we see battling it out for us here. And you can see it, I think, in kind of the formation that we see right now. 2x2, committed drivers to the outside that haven't found their way back down to the bottom. But also in terms of this event, this is the longest single run that these drivers would be able to look forward to. 50 laps if we were able to go the distance. So as far as handling, saving your tires, all of that going to be markedly different. And also take a look, we've seen a drastic shift in terms of in-sim time. Again, that sun that was on the back straightaway that was casting a shadow from the big video board back there all the way through to 1 and 2. So we had a very cold track for the semifinals. For this final, it is much, much harder. So drivers were telling me in that earlier heat, in these earlier semifinals, how tight the truck could be with that colder track, but yet here we are in a totally different scenario here where it's going to handle completely different, and we're going much further.
To that end, as we ride on board with Sacramento State's Dylan Alt, if you're looking for the end-sim time, it was about 2:30 p.m. local time. That was about the middle of group number 2's time, if my memory serves me correctly, from week 1. Current air temp, 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Current track temp, 91 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about, call it maybe 14, 15 degrees higher than what we saw when we started the semifinals. So to Blake's point, Taylor, this is a slicker track. This is a greasier track, and these trucks should be looser than they were.
They're going to be slipping and sliding, especially when those tires start to fade off. Now, right now, they're fine. As we see one driver, that was John Forbes Jr. hitting the outside wall off turn number 2. That's going to mess up his handling just a little bit here. These trucks don't have the composite bodies like the Xfinity or the Cup cars that you see racing on Saturdays and Sundays. But these things here with the tires, it's going to get a lot more difficult as this run progresses. You got to be careful. Watch your throttle input. Don't be cranking on that steering wheel too much in the corners. You just want to try to keep it as straight as possible to save those tires as best you can.
I think the most telling thing I'm noticing pretty early is that when these drivers have the opportunity to get down to the inside lane, they are doing so. Not nearly as many takers on the high line as we had early on, save for this little pack here with Adam Garza, Matthew Morton, and Timmy Holmes, as we get a look at what happened between Holmes and John Forbes Jr. just a moment ago.
Yeah, big moment here off of turn 2, and unfortunately for John Forbes, you can see that damage that is lingering there for John Forbes Jr. If that is right rear damage, that can be really sensitive. So I'm going to keep my eye on him these next few laps and see if he can hang on, because with these trucks and the fact that we're so wide open, you're in the throttle so much here at Charlotte in these trucks, that can be a big hindrance to your speed. So we'll see if the aerodynamics of that truck is negatively affected, as we see Daniel Falkingham looking to the outside here for second to Euroshack, getting a little bit of clean air there on the bottom. But Falkingham tucked up right behind Basin, going to try to use that draft to go up to second for the University of Maine driver.
Falkingham, a two-time winner in the old format in the College Series, victorious at Michigan and Daytona, which may bode well for his future. Taylor Burris, if you look a little bit further back in the field, but Daytona and Michigan, two tracks that we are going to visit in tournaments later on in the College Series season. So if you start off on the right foot like Falkingham is so far, you might set yourself up to offer success throughout the season, much less just this one tournament.
Absolutely, as we keep an eye here and watch the Titan of Logan Clampett looking to try to find his way up through the running order as he battles for the top 10. And then we keep an eye on the battle for the lead. One driver hits the outside wall. I believe that was Falkingham as he's trying to find his way around Connor Yaroshat for their second position. But how about Basin holding strong with the race lead right now, as he is doing everything he can to take care of his tires but lead this charge of drivers coming barreling down on him. And it's quite an honor for him if you think about it. You're going head to head with two eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers and holding them off for the time being.
Dylan Basin has taken advantage of clean air better than anybody else. Started fifth in his semifinal and just held the track position, got up there quick, just sort of blitzed to the front and stayed there. And he's doing the exact same thing here in the final race. So whether or not it holds over 50 laps remains to be seen, Blake McCandlish, but a really good job of taking advantage of clean air from Dylan Basin, showcasing some of the speed that he's shown not only in private leagues and official competition on the service, but he had this sort of speed with him into the College Series in prior seasons too.
Well, and showing the way, at least for now, again, it's going to be a balance to see kind of how you want to play this, whether you want to be in traffic, at least in this early portion of the race, or being able to have that clean air because we're so packed up. But no doubt about it, at least it's going to be a little bit cleaner up there for Dylan Basin in that clean air. This is looking off the back of the Horry Georgetown Technical College driver in Timothy Holmes. Been strong throughout this entire event, currently running up right now in the top 5, and has kind of been just swapping back and forth between the low side, between the high side, but looks like clear up into 4th is a big moment for Matthews Whack right now in that 5th position.
Get a good look at one of the many new paint schemes that graces the college series this year. Slight updates to the schemes from a season ago and a little bit more emphasis on the names of schools. So if you're looking for your particular school, look on the side of the truck. Also, for what it's worth, at some point here, we've been flipping back and forth between time intervals and names of schools that are pylon. You see it now on the left-hand side of your screen. Whatever is on the side of the truck also is going to match the right side of the pylon. So if you're trying to identify where your school is, much less your driver, multiple ways to do it, whether or not you're looking at scoring or you're just looking at the pictures that you're seeing from the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. So great opportunity to showcase your college colors here. We're hoping for all of those who are tuning in live, some of you are representing your college colors here who are racing in tonight's event. We hope to maybe see you in future chances to compete in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series if you have an iRacing account. As we just watch, everyone right now is being very patient, a little bit conservative, kind of a bit of a give and take. If you have the run, you take the pass. If you don't, you're kind of just going to take care of it. As Jose Salas Jr. taps the wall off turn number 2, keeps on going there for the Yukon Husky as here he comes, Logan Clampett. He is going to make sure everyone remembers the night that he is showcasing here today and looking to try to just pick them off one by one.
Clampett having a good night, up 4 spots from where he started. Began in 14th and rolling off currently in the 10th position. But Jose Solis Jr. is the driver that has the honor of hard charger at the moment. Solis Jr. started in 20th, now up to 8th, just behind this battle here as you got Dylan Alt, Bradley Erickson, and Clampett 3 wide as Jackson Anderson sitting on that high line trying to figure out where to go.
And difficult there for Anderson, trying to grab the right rear quarter panel to side draft Erickson right there, 3 wide. He was almost looking 4 wide there for just a moment, but starting to venture up a little bit higher than what we've seen. Again, you can see that shadow that's being cast at the top. 1 and 2 is Anderson getting stuffed in the wall. Clampett saw that coming, reacted to it. Again, we'll have to wonder, does Anderson get a little bit of right side damage that we saw John Forbes Jr. kind of get a little bit earlier? Big slide for Anderson through 3 and 4, so we'll see if his truck can hang on there, but it looks like it's going to be okay. That didn't scratch up the blemish on that bright orange Oklahoma State paint just too much, but a big pack forming here that seems to not be able to chase down your top 3 or 4 that have managed to stay single file for now.
I was about to make the point that if there's a driver that really loves to see this battle right now, it's the driver just ahead of this group. And Taylor Burris, right now, that driver is Timothy Holmes.
Absolutely. Timothy Holmes doing a great job, has pulled away from the rest of this gaggle of trucks right here as he is trying to close in on Daniel Falkingham. But Morton and Garza are kind of that cork in the bottle for these drivers. I have a feeling once someone like Matthew Zwack finds his way around, he's going to try to make the charge to close in on Timothy Holmes. As you take a look, riding on board with the Horry Georgetown Technical College driver of Timothy Holmes, who's doing a great job running some decent lap times right now as he tries to close the gap on Daniel Falkingham.
It's about 3.5 tenths of a second between Holmes and Matthew Morton as Connor Yershak has taken the race lead once again. These two trying to escape from Falkingham and really trying to escape from Timmy Holmes. And then, surprise, surprise, we've been waiting for a moment like this. Blake McCandless, we have Matthew Morton and Matthew Zwack. The Matthews representing Michigan and Ohio State. We know how much those two schools love each other, but they are nose to tail at this point.
Well, and I think it's going to take a little bit of collaboration between those two drivers, between those two schools, to try and race up towards the front of the field. With Yershak and Bass and Falkingham, they've been single file. They haven't been using as much of their tires in this race just yet. They're not going to be able to afford to go side by side too much, which is going to be a little bit more difficult with Morton losing a spot there to Erickson. Going to do the same. What a drive for Logan Clampett. Talked about the fact that he was going to be kind of mired back in traffic to start this race, and yet here he is just very methodically as we get about 20 laps into this run, starting to make up ground. Started 14th, now slides just in front of Erickson up into the 6th position and running lap times that could put him close to the leader by the time this is all said and done. So a really impressive stint, opening run here for Logan Clampett for Cal State Fullerton.
Plant Pit now tied for the hard charger of the race with Daniel Nanny running in the 16th position, and he's right in the shot where we're looking at now, where AJ Hyder is the car of focus. Mario Miranda looking to the inside, and there's Nanny in the Ball State Cardinal machine representing the Mid-American Conference just behind them.
Absolutely, but one thing I'm keeping an eye on right now is Anderson and Miranda. They're starting to line up nose to tail. A little bit of interstate rivalry happening right now between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State as they close in on each other. The Sooners versus the Cowboys as they come down the back straightaway, but Anderson doing a great job of holding on, but we know how patient and methodical Miranda is throughout these races. He'll look to the inside of Anderson to take the spot away, side by side off of turn number 4.
Given tumultuous time in Stillwater, Mike Gundy, the longtime football coach at Oklahoma State, was sent packing a few days ago after a long period in control of the Pokes football program. So wondering here if maybe might see a run from Jackson Anderson to make people forget about the turmoil the football program is dealing with. And if you look at it from the other side of Miranda, OU with that big win over Auburn at the weekend, and how about the 10 sacks from the Oklahoma defense that really sort of set the stage for their victory in Norman.
Mentioned Miranda there, was kind of surprised to see him running up here. Again, was involved in some incidents early on in the heats and LCQs, but is one of those drivers as the handling gets a little bit tougher, starting to pick his way up through the field. We've had another change for the lead. It's gone back and forth between Dylan Basin and Connor Euroshak. Falkingham has just been hanging out there in the 3rd position. They've managed to drive away from Timmy Holmes, who had been keeping up with this lead group for a while. So going back and forth, and we got trouble off of turn number 4 just as we were talking about him. The Oklahoma State Cowboy goes around and Anderson, and for the first time here with 24 laps to go, the crowning of the Queen City Crown will have to be slowed by a caution flag for the first time.
Anderson a little bit loose in the exit of turn 4. He was already sideways and got a little bit of help to finish it off, and that also caught Mario Miranda, I believe, who got some damage in that crash as a result. A few drivers that got spun around, but our first yellow flag of the final of the Queen City Crown, which comes just after the halfway point here in Concord, Taylor.
Absolutely. Impressive drive overall from everyone here, but let's take a look at the replay and break it down for everyone here. As they work their way down the back straightaway, there you see John Forbes, Anderson, and company Garza. And I want to see what happened here with Anderson. He gets up the track a little bit further, and Hyder makes the contact and unfortunately collects at least 2 other vehicles that will receive significant damage. But AJ Hyder being a little bit too aggressive, washing up the track a little bit, and unfortunately that will take out both of the Oklahoma drivers along with Triton in this mix. And also one University of Northwestern Ohio driver.
I think it's a tough one to call, Taylor, because Anderson was clearly sideways before they got out of the corner, and just from watching it again here, just looked like AJ Hyder caught him at the wrong time where he was already going around, and then Hyder sort of finished him out. So could be very, very intriguing to see how they shake it out, what sort of discussions they have after the fact. But the fact of the matter remains that a lot of these drivers now with the opportunity, again, you've got a tire set here to work with, got multiple sets of tires to work with if you need them. And so everybody coming down pit road for fresh rubber. And if you need a little bit of damage repair, that's also an option too, Blake.
It is, and this is going to be, I would turn the money stop here. It's going to be tough if we have a caution in 10 laps to decide to pit. So you want to execute this right here, not slide through your box. Again, we've had 22 laps of runs on these tires, so drivers having to be mindful of that. Also very, very advantageous to have that first pit stall to try to get that run off of pit road. As you can see, the entire field has taken advantage to try to take tires here.
The entire field did come down pit road. In the meantime, You want more information on the eNASCAR College iRacing Series? You can scan the QR code on the bottom portion of your screen and register to race for $60,000 in scholarship prizes. And you're going to visit pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR for more information about the eNASCAR College iRacing Series powered by Play vs. College League. If you are looking for information on the second tournament of the season, that will take us to a track that Taylor Burris knows pretty well. Daytona International Speedway is the home of tournament number 2. Our Clash on the Beach, week 1, will take place on October 15th. You'll have groups 1, 2, and 3 competing to whittle things down to 39, and then our 39 will compete for the win in the tournament on October 22nd. Those broadcasts both starting at 7 p.m. Eastern at enascar.com/live, and then the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship a week before that from Homestead Miami Speedway, with the Championship 4 racing live at the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Uptown Charlotte, and the broadcast team live as well. That race coming your way Tuesday, October 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern, enascar.com/live. Going to be a lot of fun to see who claims the title. A lot of great stories in that one between Novak and Kerwin and company here, and Steven Wilson trying to fight for a title. 3 of the 4 who are going to be going after it. Restart coming our way with 21 laps to go, and plenty, I think, to play out in this race. Chente Salas, the other driver, also competing for a Coke Series title. We got the win at Phoenix. It was so good last week. But as we turn our attention here to College Series action, Basin and Yarashak have been at the front of the field for a good chunk of this final, but this is the opportunity for everything to essentially reset, and for the drivers who might not necessarily have been pushing so hard in the first half of this race to really show their hand. But now is the time to start showing your hand if you have anything for the top 6, or maybe even the top of the field, trying to win the Queen City crown. Green flag comes out once again. Basin with a good jump. Yarashak didn't quite get the best of jumps, and Falkingham is going to have an opportunity to maybe get the pass on the inside for second.
Field now with Basin now taking charge of the lead. Falkingham trying to fight with Yarashek. Everyone else is going to go 2 by 2 as they come off of turn number 2 down the back straightaway. And it looks like Falkingham will edge out ahead of Yarashek for a brief moment. But the draft, the aero push is coming into play for our drivers with those fresh set of tires. It's going to be critical to see how quickly these drivers will work their way up through the field.
Basin not complaining at all about the action happening behind him. Meanwhile, Falkingham trying to work that bottom line, but all kinds of momentum on the outside for Connor Yarashak, who will continue to carry the momentum on the exit of turn 2, and I think will complete this pass down the back straightaway for second. He does. Falkingham back to third. Timmy Holmes in fourth. What does Matthew Zwack go?
It's tough to ask, especially now, considering the fact that with what we were looking at last run, 50 laps, you had drivers that were starting to come on late that saved their tires, drivers that pushed early and were starting to fall on back. I don't think we're going to see that for the remainder of this race. I think you got to be up on the chip here. 20 laps is very similar to what you saw through the heat races a little bit earlier. You have all of these elite drivers that have advanced up to this point. So I don't think there's really any saving that's going to be going on here through these last 20 laps. You got to go, you got to take a lane, and you got to go with it. As Falkingham, you can see the look back from third. They're still 2 wide. How about how impressive Clampett has continued to be, driving up through the field side by side with Matthew Zwack right now. And let's see if Zwack can get clear off at 2. He does. But again, single file, trying to form up, get this draft, and just not a lot of time to try to make something happen here.
Matthew Zwack now starting to get away from the double file battling, which is good for his case. Logan Clampett also just about clear of Dylan Alt. Bradley Harrison trying to follow suit, but I think to your point, Blake McCandless, if you are going to try and chase after Basin or Yarashak or Falkingham or Holmes Company, you've got to get free of this double file battling and get into single file traffic so you can attempt to run these drivers down up front.
Absolutely there, James, as we watch the battle here for that coveted 6th position, the final spot to get the money here tonight. As they work their way through the middle of the corner, you ride on board with Fresno State's Austin Johnson inside the top 15. has been a little bit stuck right there in that for the majority of the race. Can't seem to get out of that dirty air, which is costing him valuable time as he tries to find his way around Hagan and battling with Daniel Nanny, who's running right there on the outside if you look there on the right side of your screen.
If there's ever a driver that would love to see this go maybe 100 laps, it's Daniel Nanny, because Nanny has not had good track position all night, regardless of what semifinal or the LCQ or what final he's in. But to his great credit, he's made up and passed more trucks than anybody else in this field tonight, up 9 spots from where he started, still in 15th. But so far as the points are concerned, a really good run for him, but especially with as chaotic as Daytona could be, how valuable those points could be when we get to Homestead next April.
Yeah, that's going to be something, I mean, that we're talking about, I think, throughout the course of the season. It's just being able to try and chase a championship. Who can actually make their way into every individual feature? You might be able to even win 3 or 4 different events, but if you don't qualify for the other ones, it's going to be a tough time, tough sailing to try to chase down a championship when all is said and done. And I think we're starting to see that mentality that we were talking about a little bit earlier. Top side of your screen, Connor Euroshak and Dylan Basin right now. Euroshak kind of played it easy, went back and forth, exchanging the race lead with Dylan Basin through that first run, but not letting him get out to quite the lead that he had early in that first run, starting to chase him back down. And Falkingham, Timmy Holmes, Matthews Wax still single file, and hoping that these two go double file to slow each other down and try to bring them back into the picture.
Working our way towards 10 laps to go in the Queen City Crown. Connor Yarashak starting to ramp up the pressure, making a move to the inside. This for $3,000 in scholarship money, as Basin now beginning to feel the pressure from Connor Yarashak, representing the Dinos of the University of Calgary.
As we watch on here, as we take a look, $3,000 to the winner here in your Logitech G race analysis. But I got to say, that driver of Basin doing an incredible job representing the Pasco Hernando State College as we go on board with the Dino himself, Connor Yarashak, your defending race winner, but he's got a little bit of work to do. The great north of Canada going up against the Sunshine State of Florida. This is going to be one for the races here as we watch them come across the line. 10 laps to go.
Dylan Basin out of Lakeland, Florida, which, if you know your iRacing trivia, that happens to be the location of USA International Speedway, which is where just about everybody starts their oval career out on iRacing, incidentally enough. So pretty neat tie-in there for Basin. Yarashak, of course, has his own tie-ins, won the race series we mentioned, also driver for Letard Esports in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, and in the hunt for Rookie of the Year honors in the Coke series as well. So 2 very accomplished drivers in their own right. Falkingham has been able to hang with them, but hasn't really been able to close the gap down all that much. Watching lap times here, it's pretty close, but Basin was the quickest of the top 3 last time by.
Really big move there for Erickson to try and slide up in front of Matthews Wack right there. Again, fighting for that final spot into the scholarship money. Clampett had it. He's now falling back out of it. He's battling for 8th. And as you mentioned, Euroshak slowly starting to track him down. Falkingham been able to keep pace, but not been able to make up the ground necessary to go up and fight for the battle for the race lead. But can't imagine that Euroshak's going to make it easy. He's going to have a huge run off of turn number 2. $3,000 on the line. Connor Euroshak looking for it. He can taste it now with 8 to go here at Charlotte.
Last time by, Yarashak was the fastest of the leaders, albeit by 100th of a second over Dylan Basin. So not much in it between the 3, but it was close. As they come back to the stripe here to make it 7 laps to go, it was Connor Yarashak again fastest by 2/100ths of a second. So ever so slightly Taylor Burris, he's faster, but he's going to need a bigger difference. He's going to need a run of some form to try and make the pass here on Dylan Basin.
So Basin is studying in pursuit of cybersecurity degree, and he is doing a defense job right now of just protecting that inside line, making Yarashak burn those tires with the dirty air. And I gotta say, it's an incredible job here that he has to showcase tonight, and he is definitely going to be one to watch this season as he tries to hold off the eNASCAR rookie. As you're right on board with Dylan Basin, as you see that hungry Dino coming barreling down on him down the backstretch.
You can see how much Yershak slipped on the exit of turn 2 last time by. And the other thing I'm noticing here, especially as I'm watching a little bit more closely the way that Basin and Yershak's trucks are behaving as we look a little bit further back in the money battle, Basin's truck, the rear end on it, it's not moving at all. It is very planted, very stable, especially middle to the exit out of corners. And I think that is all the proof of the word, Blake McCandless, that his rear tire is probably in pretty good shape right now.
It's looking to be that way. I thought Euroshak was a little bit stronger towards the end of the run, but I think that run through 1 and 2 got in the dirty air, slipped up a little bit, kind of pushed tight behind us. We're 3 wide going down into turn number 3. Again, this is all happening outside the money, but still a lot of precious points on the line. And the fact that, again, this race could be affected if we have a caution flag here late in the going. Matthew Morton right now for Ohio State hanging on to 8th right now, going to the top side, trying to defend. This is tight, and again, depending on how this shakes out, could affect this battle for the win as well.
I think if you're Dylan Basin, you're looking at this and saying, please let this be a normal field trip. There's contact with Timmy Holmes, who slides up the racetrack. Daniel Nanny gets into him. Holmes is going to slide it around, end up in the fence, and there's the caution with 4 laps to go.
Oh my, that was something else, and we were having such a good fight here. I'm excited to see how this could play out, but I have to say Basin definitely had a great drive to hold off the competition from Yershak in that stint.
So Timmy Holmes gets sideways and eventually loses it, and now we are under the yellow flag here with 3 laps to go. Dylan Basin in a very, very good position at the moment.
Lights are on the pace car right now. Again, I don't know with how this might end. If you would, I don't think you're going to risk pitting at this time. You're probably going to stay out. If we get it, it just depends on timing and scoring and what time they pick up the pace car, how many laps, if there's anybody a lap down, all those things play into this factor of whether we're going to get back going green or not.
Going to be tricky, going to be tough. Let's take a look here and watch the replay and see what happened to Timmy Holmes and what sort of contact there was. You see Austin Johnson and John Forbes Jr. in frame, and they were all over the place down the backstretch, Taylor.
Yeah, they really were. That hard contact right there from Timmy Holmes almost saved it, but unfortunately just got collected up and then collected a couple of other drivers as he tried to gather it back up. But tough break for Timmy Holmes, who was looking to have a strong finish here in tonight's conclusions. But Johnson, I gotta say, that was a little aggressive right there, but we know there was only so much time left in this race that you had to go for it.
Well, I think just looking back at it, Blake, that's a case where I think Johnson was trying to give room to Forbes and make sure that he didn't come down on Forbes. And so he tried to slide a little bit further outside and towards the high line of the racetrack than he would have. And I think just didn't realize that Holmes was still in the picture there and just clipped him ever so slightly. And with the rate of speed that these trucks are carrying, especially off into corner entry, if you clip somebody just that much and upset the rear end of the truck that much, you end up in trouble, and makes it really easy for Holmes to go around. To his credit, Holmes did a pretty good job of trying to hang on to the truck, but you're working with margins that are so fine that it's tough for anybody to be able to save that truck in that kind of situation.
Well, and especially entering on the high side in 3 and 4 at Charlotte. Again, this is a racetrack, especially with the wind that we've seen throughout the course of this event, that it's really hard to enter on the wall, keep it there the entire radius of the corner. If you're going to run the outside here at Charlotte, you're pretty much not going to be able to do it, putting the right side door right on the wall and being able to keep it up there around the corner. So you have to turn in at some point, even if you think you're going to diamond the corner a little bit. So I'm sure that's what Holmes was expecting, was that driver in the middle to just turn in a little bit. And again, hard to say right or wrong there, but just a disagreement over real estate there, as it looks like we've taken the white flag here.
We have taken the white flag. A testament to Taylor Burris, I think, to just how hard these drivers were racing for position, because that was all right in the mix. That was, 8th, 9th, 10th, right in that ballpark where they were just on the edge of potentially picking up some scholarship money, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a tough break for several of these drivers here tonight as they were looking to try to get that chance of scholarship funds. But unfortunately for some of them, it is going to be day in, and a couple of drivers will now be placed in the opportunity to get that scholarship money.
They would have had the opportunity to race for scholarship money. You take a look here at the unofficial point standings. Dylan Basin up by 5 on Yarashak. These, of course, are going to mirror the finishing results, but all that matters for Dylan Basin is making sure that he makes it around the corner and back to the start-finish line. And Dylan Basin, who finished in 4th in his first round race and 3rd in his second round race, will back it up by taking advantage of track position, getting to the front early in his semifinal, and he will cross the stripe as the very first winner of an eNASCAR College iRacing Series tournament. Dylan Basin from Pasco Hernando State College out of Newport Richey, Florida, will win the Queen City Crown and become the first ever tournament winner in College Series history. Dylan Basin victorious, and I think, Blake, a testament to the importance of track position. Burnt his tires up early to get it in the semifinal. Never really looked back from that point forward.
No, it was a game plan, and you could say what you want about whether he went early or decided to go late, but it didn't matter. When it came down to it, Yarashak slipped up. Dylan Basin was just too quick. Picked the right time to be up front, executed all event long, and that's what you got to do to win this tournament. You got to execute in every phase of it. Dylan Basin did that perfectly.
And tonight's winning moment is brought to you by Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Play vs. College League. As Dylan Basin, the Floridian, works his way up the seaboard to Concord, North Carolina, and burns it down on the front straightaway. Taylor Burris as the winner of tournament number 1 of 6 in the 2025-26 season.
Absolutely incredible drive right there as we take a look at the rest of the running order.
Yes, indeed. Basin, Yarashak, Falkingham, Erickson, Matthews, Wack, and Logan Clampett, the 6 drivers that are walking away with scholarship money. Everybody else still coming away with points, but Dylan Basin, the big one at the front of this field. And Clampett with a good drive, too. Up 8 spots from his starting position, goes from 14th to 6th to get in the money, Blake.
That was so impressive for him to be able to do that. Dylan All, Matthew Morton, Adam Garza, John Forbes Jr. Again, big points that they're able to gather, finishing up in the top 10 and being able to qualify for this final. We'll see if they can do the same moving forward.
3 drivers that gained a ton of track position here, leading off the teams of this group. Johnson, Nanny, and Solis Jr. combined picked up 26 positions on the track. Those points, who knows how important they could be, Taylor?
Absolutely, and of course we have to give a shout out to the rivalry that we are calling here for the College Series between University of Northwestern Ohio and UNC Charlotte. Northwestern Ohio, that got 2 drivers in the finals, and they are up on the board here with some great points to kick off that rivalry over the 2025-2026 season.
Blake Wynn brought home some points for UNC Charlotte as well, but between those 2, round 1 to UNOH. And then Jake Hall, Jackson Anderson, Timothy Holmes, Andrew Drupiano, and A.J. Hyder. The final 5 in this final round, going away with some points as well. And that is how the Queen City Crown was claimed by one driver. In the end of things, it's Pasco Hernando State College's Dylan Basin, who is now hanging out here. Actually, Connor Yarashak coming up here with Blake McCandless.
Connor bringing it home in the second position here for the Dinos. And Connor, I know it's tough to have it in that way, but it's still a great race for you, running up in the second position that whole time. Did you need kind of that first run to play out in its entirety for you to try and chase down Dylan there?
Yeah, I think I did, because first run, like, being leader was like pretty grief, to be honest. It was definitely easier to drive in second. So Basin was kind of leading, and then I got the lead from him. And at that point, I should have just started running middle to protect myself from the grief. But I tried running bottom and then lost the lead. Like, basically the lap the yellow came out, which, I mean, then once you're on short fuel, it was just impossible to pass there at the end. So even if we had green, white checkereds, or who knows, I mean, I was never getting by Basin at the end. But I mean, overall, second's second's not too bad.
A pretty big payday in terms of scholarship money for you. You get to collect the points. You advance all the way through to the finals here. How do you kind of picture this moving forward? I know we got Daytona coming up yet next, and we hardly know what to expect. That's going to be pure chaos, I'd imagine, there.
Yeah, I think Daytona is going to be just probably all about survival, like it normally is. But I mean, it's really important that when you come to a track like this, where you can kind of control your own destiny a little better, that you capitalize. And I feel like, I did a fairly solid job tonight, maximizing what I could. I mean, look back at where I went wrong and try to be better, but overall pretty happy.
All right, that's Connor Urashak finishing up in the second position tonight, representing the University of Calgary. Wouldn't be shocked to see this driver back and running up front again when we get to Daytona and Iowa in a few weeks' time.
Not a surprise at all, but here is the winner, the holder of the Queen City Crown. Taylor Burris is with Pasco Hernandez State College's Dylan Basin.
Well, Dylan, I got to say, what we saw in week one compared to what we saw tonight, you have made some incredible improvement. You were able to study. What was the big difference to where you could come out on top to go head-to-head with some of the biggest teams in eNASCAR competition?
Honestly, last week it wasn't all about winning. It was just about getting in. And I knew at the end of all those races, whether it be a 20-lap run or 40-lap run, my tires were always great. I always had pace. I just knew I had to apply that here while keeping track position in the short run, which I feel like I mastered pretty good. Me and Urashak, after I passed him at the halfway point, it was just it's like a pack race almost. But I mean, we held on, started pulling away at the end, and the yellow kind of sealed the deal for us. But yeah, there's not much more I can say. It was just pretty awesome.
How does it feel to be representing your college here in tonight's action with this? I mean, tell us more about Pasco Hernandez State College briefly.
I mean, it's honestly just, one of the more popular community colleges around me. I'm sure they haven't probably been in an esports competition before, but now they're in one, and we first race with them, we won. So it's pretty darn cool, man. It's a good college. I love being there. Love everybody there, so I feel good.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Dylan. We hope to see you at your home track in a few weeks' time at Daytona International Speedway. Let's see if we can go 2 for 2.
All right, yeah.
So Dylan Basin, we're going to his territory, Daytona International Speedway. Also, a little statistician's nugget from iRacing's very own Justin Milillo. Jose Silvas Jr., we talked about how much track position he gained over the course of the evening. Jose Silvas Jr. competed in every single possible race that he could have. Went from the first round to the LCQ, to the second round, to the semifinal, to the LCQ, and to the final round, and still ends up with a pretty good night. All things told, 13th in the point standings here. This is what they look like, Taylor Burris, after our first tournament in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series.
And if you look up towards the front of the field, you see some of your heavy favorites, but also a couple of drivers just outside the top 20 who are really looking like they could be some favorites if opportunity presents itself, especially at a track like Daytona, and that could be possibly flipping this entire championship on its lid when we head out there.
A very great point there, Blake. I have to believe this is going to shake up a tremendous amount once we get done with the Clash on the Beach, because Daytona is the most unpredictable track we'll visit in the College Series this year.
Well, again, what you don't see is we have 20 drivers that we paid out points. We continued through everybody that made this final, but you know how many drivers that signed up for this event and ran in this event that got 0 points? Almost 100 of them. So that is going to be the story of this season, is being able to continue to advance, to continue to survive, because, again, great job for Dylan Basin. He's able to take the win. He gets $3,000 in scholarship money. Means absolutely nothing when we get to Daytona. And if you want to try to win this championship, you can't afford to miss races. So a lot of pressure going on these drivers when we get to Daytona in a few weeks.
The money stays here. The points will carry over, and those who raced in the LCQ also get points as well. So that still leaves, ballpark, 80 drivers that are pretty hungry for points getting into Daytona. And for some of them, Taylor, it's going to be their best opportunity to get points all season long, because it's plate racing. It's a completely different set of rules from what you find in a mile and a half.
Absolutely, and it's going to be exciting to see how that all plays out for these drivers, where we could see some new faces, some new colleges that could be able to work their way up into that running order later on in that event. So keep an eye on that and see who takes care, and make sure you go out there and compete in that brand new time attack that starts not that far away as we get set to see who will be the ones.
Next week is when the time attack for the Clash on the Beach is going to open. So if you liked what you saw, if you're a college-age student and you want the opportunity to jump in, the time attack kicks off pretty shortly, and then we'll go racing at Daytona and get after it. Our first week of action comes your way on October 15th. The second week of action and the finals comes your way on October 22nd. Those broadcasts you'll see at 7 p.m. Eastern on eNASCAR.com/live. Countdown to Green starting at 6:45 p.m. Eastern, as well as these drivers in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Play vs. College League, head to the high banks of Daytona to see who is the best of the best on super speedways, and can Dylan Baseland now defend home turf? That is the big question. For all of our partners here at eNASCAR, for everyone at the Play vs. College League and Logitech G, for our director Drew Adamson and the entire production team at iRacing, and for my colleagues in the booth, Taylor Burris and Blake McCandless, I am James Pike. Thank you so much for watching the Queen City Crown, the first tournament of the 2025-26 eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by Play vs. College League. Congratulations to Pasco Hernando State College's Dylan Basin on winning the first ever College Series tournament, and we look forward to seeing you in October at Daytona International Speedway.